historic and distinctive Mediterranean atmosphere of the unique round-the-houses circuit at Monaco, the Grand Prix scene has made a huge transatlantic leap to downtown Detroit in Michigan, USA. Unlike Monaco, the new circuit is used in an anti-clockwise direction and is all straights and corners rather than curvy twists and turns. But like Monaco, it has a tunnel and is very tough on brakes and transmissions. None of the drivers have seen it before, so they all start equal after the frenzied rush to get here for round 7 of the World Championship. Only 6 points separate the top 6, with Alain Prost 1 ahead of John Watson, Pironi 3rd, Rosberg 4th, Monaco winner Patrese 5th, and Niki Lauda 6th. And after an extremely contentious practice period, once again it's Alain Prost in pole position, with Andrea de Cesaris 2nd, Rosberg 3rd, Pironi 4th, Winkelhock 5th, and Giacomelli 6th. John Watson's down in 17th, and amazingly, world champion Nelson Piquet's failed to qualify.
The Grand Prix circus went back across the Atlantic to Detroit, a town where imported automobiles aren't always a welcome sight. But Formula One cars don't threaten anyone's job, so the puzzled spectators were all smiles.
I think it's nice.
I think it's great for the city of Detroit, and the interruption I think is well worth it.
Fantastic.
I think it's all right. I think Detroit needs something like that.
I think it's really exciting.
Have you ever seen sort of racing before?
No.
You're going to be here on Sunday?
No.
I believe we build the best cars in the world here, and what better place to have a race than the Motor City?
The circuit for Detroit's first Grand Prix wasn't even finished, hence no practice. The drivers did a lot of being just one of the boys and stuff like that.
Kanamaki, as always, in the pits. There's a view of the Renaissance Center, and now the first 3 rows, Jackie.
Well, the first 3 rows starting from the bottom end there in car number 23, Bruno Giacomelli from Italy. Bruno Giacomelli, 29 years of age, now makes his home in Italy. Next to him will be Manfred Winkelhock, and that's Bruno Giacomelli right there in that car number 23, the red and white car. He, of course, being very Italian, driving for an Italian team. Of course, very proud the Italians are of motor racing. That's Winkelhock. That's the driver who's going to be almost alongside him. It's a staggered grid here. They're not side by side. He's driving a car that, until now, has almost not qualified for many of the Grand Prix. It's always been a borderline case, and here he finds himself starting in 5th position on the starting grid. Very impressive for the young driver in his very first year of Grand Prix racing.
Again, we're moving from the 3rd row forward.
That's correct. And as we go forward, we see Didier Pironi driving the lone Ferrari. Gilles Villeneuve was sadly killed in a race during practice, in fact, for that race, the Belgian Grand Prix. Pironi taking over the number 1 position and the only position in this race for Ferrari. There you see Keke Rosberg from Finland. You see great difference in nationalities, putting on his balaclava to protect him against fire. In the case of fire, to give the driver an opportunity to protect himself. Driving a British car with Arab sponsorship. Again, the internationalism of Grand Prix racing. Frank Williams, the man who put that car and team together. Then you see another new international man, Andrea de Cesaris, only 22 years of age. So nearly won the Monaco Grand Prix that we all hopefully saw in ABC's Wide World of Sports. De Cesaris, very excited driver, had a little accident, damaged the car yesterday, and of course still wanting to win his first Grand Prix. And the man in pole position, the fastest man so far around here, Alain Prost, who, funnily enough, I suggested at the beginning of the season might win the World Championship this year. The enormous resources of the big companies behind him, Renault and Elf, sponsoring his team. A lot of money there with a lot of success so far, Jim.
Certainly has. He won the first 2 Grand Prix of the season, and now he's on the pole for the first running of the Detroit Grand Prix. We'll be back live for the start. We're back again live in the streets of Detroit. Jim McKay in the commentary booth with Jackie Stewart, and there is the field. You're looking down at the first row of Alain Prost of France. He's on the right of your screen in the yellow and white car. In the red and white car, Andrea de Cesaris of Italy in the Marlboro Alfa Romeo. There is Prost's car, the pole-sitting winner. Again, remember, he won the first 2 Grand Prix of the season. At this point, Jackie, what's happening with these cars? We're very close to the start.
There's an army of mechanics still on hand. These cars do not start with self-starters. They start with extra auxiliary batteries so that they don't drain any of the battery or any of the energy to restart the car if, for example, it breaks down or stops or spins out during one of these warm-up laps or, in fact, during the race itself. So those mechanics are now clearing that grid.
Now, of course, this will not be the actual start. What they will do at this point is move around slowly at first on a so-called pace lap, not actually setting the pace, because what happens at the end of that lap is they return to their positions on the starting grid. Would you say the main purpose of this is to make sure that everybody's motor engine is running and running properly as we look at the temperature and the other weather conditions there?
The ideal temperatures, by the way, not too hot and not too cool. And as the cars move off there, keep in mind this is not the start of the race, this is the pace lap. The drivers get an opportunity to not only warm up the engines or their transmissions, but also their tires. And of course, René Arnoux is way back in the back of the grid, as we mentioned, the teammate of Alain Prost, who's in pole position. We can expect to see a bit of a rush up from him, but right now, as they go around this very picturesque Grand Prix with this Renaissance Centre as almost a table piece in the centre of this glamorous way of running a motor race through the metropolis. You see the cars there. You see Keke Rosberg's car, number 6, Pironi's car, number 28. That's the young British driver, Mansell, in car number 12, the black car, the Lotus, designed by Colin Chapman, who has won the Indianapolis 500 with Jim Clark, a great designer. There you see the specifications of the racetrack right now, 20 turns. Amazing, with more than 40 gear changes per lap. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough on transmissions here, Jim.
All right, let's set the field now. In row 1, Prost and De Cesaris. Row 2, Rosberg of Finland and Pironi of France. Then Vigelhock of Germany, Giacomelli of Italy. Moving along, row 4, Mansell and De Angelis. Then Eddie Cheever of the United States, the only American driver in the race, and former world champion Niki Lauda. Then Guerrera, the first Colombian ever to drive Grand Prix, and Derek Daly of Ireland. Row 7, Jacques Laffite and Riccardo Patrese, who was so effective at Monte Carlo. René Arnoux, Michele Alboreto in the Tyrrell. Row 9, there's John Watson, who's won a Grand Prix this season, and Jochen Mass of Germany. Row 10, Marc Surer of Switzerland, Brian Hinton. Row 11, Raoul Bossel of Brazil, Jean-Pierre Jarier of France, then Riccardo Paletti and Mauro Baldi. Row 13, 2 in a row, as you see, Eliseo Salazar and the Brazilian Chico Serra. That's the field then, Jackie, and a very, very tight race course, as is indicated very graphically here.
Well, amazingly, they're doing about 100 miles an hour through there if they're really standing on it. Of course, we're still in the pace lap. Look at our tunnel shot here, a great shot in this tunnel. Again, we have a tunnel in Monte Carlo. So much of this racetrack in some way resembles Monaco. I don't mind saying it, because this could easily be Monte Carlo right here. It's not quite as long a tunnel, but a great shot for us as the cars come out of there and head towards the start-finishing line, and they'll be slowing their pace up so that they don't have to wait too long. Now, Nelson Piquet, the reigning world champion, has not qualified for this race. He had problems, mechanical problems yesterday. There was rain in the afternoon session, and Piquet, the past world champion, 1981 world champion, is not in the race. First time it's ever happened since Jody Scheckter did not qualify at Montreal in 1980 while he was champion.
We should point out the race is scheduled for 75 laps or 2 hours in time, whichever comes first. Our guess is that the 2 hours will come first.
Now, what happens now, all the cars must come to a stop, and the picture on the right-hand side of your screen right now is a red light will come on when the official starter is satisfied that all of the cars have come to a complete stop. When that light comes on, within 10 seconds, the green light can go, and in which case that is the start of the race. Remember, of course, it's a standing start. The car at the back there, by the way, is medical crews, and there they're under starters' orders.
Prost on the right of your screen. De Cesaris on the left. Keke Rosberg making the move into the first turn. It's Alain Prost, leader for the World Championship, out in front. The pole sitter leading, going through this first 180-degree, 100-mile-an-hour turn. It's Prost in front, followed by De Cesaris and Keke Rosberg. Look at Rosberg now moving to the right, Jackie.
And also the Ferrari of Pironi up there as well, very tight in there, but it's Prost who out-accelerated the rest of the cars. He's got more horsepower in his Renault, although on the other hand it's a turbocharged car. It carries more fuel and therefore heavier in the beginning. Going on to the faster part of the racetrack, he takes a slight advantage there, but Alain Prost at the slowest part of the racetrack still has his lead there, followed by De Cesaris, then Keke Rosberg, then Pironi, and then one of the Lotus cars, probably Mansell in the Lotus car.
But Prost stretching it out just a little bit on the first lap of the first Detroit Grand Prix. And here, one car pulling off to the side. Let's get the number on that car, number 30. That is Mauro Baldi of Italy, of the Arrows team. At the hairpin, pulling off the race course.
And again,
there very quickly with a fire extinguisher, by the way.
Well, a very disappointed young man, but there's Alan Prost, remember the man who's leading this World Championship this year in the Renault, accelerating out onto Jefferson and heading up towards the Cobo Hall, the big convention centre. Hard braking again with full fuel load at this time. The car is rather clumsy and difficult to handle.
Now downhill into a depression here. Looks like a tunnel, but it isn't. They'll go under a small overpass, but then head for the real tunnel. Here is the tunnel, the one that reminds you so much of Monte Carlo with the Renaissance Center in the background.
Streaking through that tunnel at about 140 to 145 miles an hour, braking heavily for a second gear corner right now. Alan Prost driving very neatly at this point. He must not make a mistake, and in the early laps it's so easy, and there's one of the cars.
Yes, we have there Raul Pocel of Brazil in the march. 2 cars so far having small incidents on the race course. Prost still leading as they finish the first lap. Prost followed by the Cheever's in the red and white car, then the green and white car of Keke Rosberg of Finland. Prost out in front, that's the yellow and white car just leaving your screen. The Cheever's, the red and white. Rosberg, and as you see, Pironi, Mansell of Great Britain, and Giacomelli. They'll be nearing the hairpin, and we'll see if that race car is still in the area. They're still racing under green. You get this wide shot by the church. Here they go. No, it's well parked on the side. No problem. Slowest part of the race course, and now this left turn that would be a normal left turn, as you'd see on a regular street, because that's what these are. Hard left, 90-degree turn.
Well, the car that's leading there, and there's an oil flag out. I see one of the marshals holding a yellow and red striped flag out there to demonstrate that there may be oil on the racetrack. It may be slippery, so the drivers will take another line. This information tremendously important to the race drivers to be kept informed. Quite often after the first lap, some overfilled oil tanks can spill out and there can be trouble. One of the Tyrrells in the pits. Oh, Michele Alboreto in the pit. Now this is the young man who finished third at Imola earlier in the Grand Prix season, showing great promise in the pits already. But the man not in the pits and very much in a commanding lead so early in the race is, of course, Alan Prost.
And the team we saw in the pits, Tyrrell, it's your old racing team. You must feel a little personal twinge for them.
Yes.
Into the tunnel for the second time goes Alain Prost of France on Renault. It's a French driver, a French car, a French engine. French all the way. And look at Keke Rosberg closing in on Andrea de Cesaris. A battle for second place now shaping up. The Cesaris of Italy, the Alfa Romeo. Look at Rosberg, almost making the move for the pass.
Well, he's really scratching to get round there. De Cesaris driving a 12-cylinder car, the Alfa Romeo engine car, a little more flexible in its engine power. But and we have Jochen Mass. It looks like the German. No, it's one of the ATS cars. It's
Winkelhoff, who started well up, who started on the third row, the young West German, who surprisingly qualified so well, but he's out of it now. Manfred Winkelhoff of West Germany on the ATS team. And here we still have Keke Rosberg pursuing the Cesaris of Italy. Rosberg of Finland in that green and white car of the Williams team, which, as you pointed out, is really international, Jackie. It has Arab sponsorship, Saudi Arabia, English car, Finnish driver.
And also, ironic, they had a great dice together, a great battle in Monte Carlo. Again, 22 years of age, the young man in the red and white car, and the man behind him in the green and white car is 33 years of age. And then you see the order as we have it just now, live here from Detroit. The car number 6, the white car you see, is the car of Keke Rosberg. This is the lead car, of course, of Alain Prost. Tremendously young and talented driver. Very impressive.
Jackie, where can Rosberg pass? Where's the spot to do it?
Under braking. He will wait to see the Cesaris make a slight error, and you can see how much of the road they use there coming on to Jefferson. Right there, Keke Rosberg has no reason to go out around there. He's probably trying to miss the manhole covers because we're running through the streets here, and he wants to save his suspension and his transmission. And the more you miss in the way of bumps, the kinder you are to your car, because these cars literally have no suspension left. They have a thing called ground effect, which makes the car really stick to the road, but it works best when there's little or no suspension movement.
The same ground effect that we had at Indianapolis, but they're allowed to have a stronger ground effect, are they not, in Grand Prix racing?
They are indeed, and it was here that it was developed, and Rosberg trying to get a pass, and he's done it.
Keke Rosberg of Finland passing Andrea de Cesaris of Italy for second place in the race.
It looks to me like de Cesaris is in trouble. He's gone into the pits. De Cesaris has gone into the pits. That was the final corner in that lap. So Andrea De Cesaris has had a problem in his Alfa Romeo. They have been unreliable, and you see him in the pits right now. They have not been too good this year so far. He's getting out of the car. It looks to me like he's trying to unbuckle his seatbelt. It looks more than just a problem of perhaps a tire going down or a minor problem. They're chatting too long. I think you can expect little or nothing in the leaderboard from now on from that driver.
Well, remember that in this kind of racing, there are no scheduled pit stops in this race. This is not Indy, where you can make up time when the other fellow makes his pit stop. You make a pit stop here, it's all time against you. Looking down from high overhead, and there are the standings. Prost and Rosberg. De Cesaris now into the pits, so forget him. Pironi, Mansell, and Giacomelli. We're live from the Detroit Grand Prix. We're live in Detroit again. Still Prost of France leading the first Detroit Grand Prix, followed by Rosberg of Finland, Pironi of France, Mansell of Great Britain, Giacomelli of Italy, and now Eddie Cheever of the United States in car number 25 has moved up among the leaders. Eddie's been getting better and better in the past couple of years, hasn't he, Jackie?
Very talented young driver, a man that we can expect to see a lot more of in the future. Would be very nice to see the American flag flying and someday your national anthem playing at the end of a Grand Prix. Eddie Cheever might be the man to do it.
Well, of course, there have only been two Americans to win the World Championship, Phil Hill and Mario Andretti. Phil back in 1961 and Mario just a couple of years ago. Look at how close they come to the edge of that wall, Jackie, coming into Jefferson. We have a report right now, however, in the pits from Chris Economaki. Chris?
Well, I have here Andrea De Cesaris, a short race for you. What was the problem?
I had a problem with the transmission, something drive shaft broke.
What about the circuit and all the cars on it?
Well, the circuit is too bumpy, as everyone told before, because the surface is not good at all.
Now, how about your teammate? You root for Giacomelli?
Yes, we look for him.
Okay, Andrea De Cesaris, one of the first men out of the race. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, a disappointed driver, particularly disappointed because he's so young. It hasn't happened to him that often yet. Alain Prost of France still leading the race in car number 15, the yellow and white car at age 27. Remember, he won the first two Grand Prix of this year. Then he had a 21st at Long Beach, 10th at San Marino, 12th at Belgium, 7th at Monte Carlo. So he hasn't had a really good result for quite a while.
Well, of course, the man who's leading the race right now is Alain Prost, because Alain had that dramatic accident so close to the end of the Monaco Grand Prix. He was all set up to win the race, came out of the chicane, drove into the barrier at incredible speed and had himself, in fact, an injury to his ankle, which looked quite nasty and I know concerned him very heavily about the remainder of the season. Luckily, he was able to recover from that.
There he is, still leading the race. As a matter of fact, Jackie, you had a conversation with him that related to that a little bit earlier. Jackie Stewart talking with race leader Alain Prost about that injury problem.
How is your foot after the Grand Prix of Monaco?
I was very bad last week, and I didn't know if I was able to race here. I think it will be difficult to race for me because it's a very bumpy track, and for my foot it's not the best track for driving. But it's getting better and better, and I think for Sunday it should be okay.
Well, he has to go 2 long hours out on this race course in pretty hot weather inside the cockpit. 2 drivers in a row, Jackie, have mentioned the bumpiness of this track, and it does seem to me you can see the wing going up and down at times. What's your opinion about that? You said you think it's a good race course.
Well, you know, the racetrack itself, in my opinion, and there's Winkelhock, by the way, while we just, for a moment, Winkelhock, in fact, chatting to one of the German journalists, obviously Germany. The great thing about the internationalism of motor racing, all the journalists come from all around the world, but to get back to that problem, it's a question of the surface of the racetrack vis-a-vis these motor cars.
De Fórmula 1 de 1982. Muitos problemas, uma série de problemas. Para, Galvão! As imagens do circuito do tão criticado circuito. Atenção, Galvão, para! Os Estados Unidos. Atenção, Galvão, para aí! Nesse exato momento, Alain Prost, que completou a 6ª volta. Galvão, para! Dá uma parada aí. Galvão, tá me ouvindo ou não? Largou a seu lado. No momento em que Ricardo Patrese bate e deixa a prova. Mais um carro a deixar a prova. Ou seja, nenhuma brava nessa Para um pouco, nós estamos com comercial no ar. Atenção, Galvão, para um minuto que nós estamos com comercial no ar. Ele foi envolvido no acidente com Ricardo Patrese. Alô, Galvão, para o corrido! Nós dizíamos que... Alô, Galvão, para o corrido! As sessões de treino válidas para a classificação foram disputadas no sábado. Na primeira, ele teve problemas com o seu carro. Alô, Galvão, para o corrido! Muitos e muitos segundos atrás do penúltimo. Na segunda sessão choveu, Nelson Piquet sequer pôde treinar e assim ficou de fora. Não pontuou assim nos fiscais de pista. Alan Prost largou na pole position, tomou a ponta, André de César ficou em segundo, mas... O segundo colocado é Keke Rosberg, aí é o carro de... do circuito de rua de Detroit, nos Estados Unidos, para mais uma etapa do Campeonato Mundial de Pilotos de Fórmula 1. Tudo confuso e tudo complicado. Tão complicado que agora, neste momento, quando você começa a acompanhar no Brasil a corrida, ela é interrompida na 7ª volta por um acidente que envolveu Ricardo Patrese e Roberto Guerreiro. Sem nenhuma consequência para os dois pilotos, mas iniciou um início de incêndio no carro de Ricardo Patrese. Então, Alan Prost, que é o líder da prova, até a 7ª volta ele foi em pole position. O que acontece é que essa pista tão criticada, os pilotos comentavam exatamente isso. Se nós tivermos uma batida, se nós tivermos um acidente em uma das chincanes ou na entrada do túnel, a prova terá que ser interrompida. Porque se o carro ficar por lá, não dá para passar um outro. E foi exatamente isso que aconteceu no acidente que envolveu Ricardo Patrese e Roberto Guerreiro. Na 7ª volta, a prova foi interrompida. Então nós vamos, com calma, explicando a você que começa a acompanhar a partir de agora o Grande Prêmio de Detroit. Que Alan Prost largou na pole position. E largou bem, seguido por André de César, que estava ao seu lado, por Keke Rosberg, por Didier Pironi, por Manfred Rockenroth, por Bruno Giacomelli, Nigel Mansell e Hélio de Angelis nas 8 primeiras posições. Manfred Rockenroth já abandonou a track. Em terceiro, Didier Pironi. Em quarto, Nigel Mansell. Em quinto, Bruno Giacomelli. Em sexto, Eddie Cheever. Em sétimo, Nick Lauda. Em oitavo, Jacques Laffite. Em nono, Derek Daly. E em décimo, René Arnoux. O brasileiro Chico Serra estava na 18ª posição. Com um acidente envolvendo Patrese e Guerreiro, ele vai para a 16ª. E o Raul Brasil, que largou na 21ª posição. Atenção, Galvão, seu quadro...
Taking a wide line here into turn one, and he turned directly into the Lotus. And that set off the accident, which, of course, subsequently involved Patrese. Now, you see them working on Patrese's car to free it from the tire wall there. It was a very dramatic moment when those of us who were on the outside here of turn one could see fire coming from the back of Patrese's Brabham. But the people that were over there close to it couldn't see that. And it was a very, very tense moment. They finally got to it. It seemed, of course, it was probably only a few seconds, but it seemed to us here like a very long time. I just had a chance to talk to Patrese. He was in no mood to do an interview. I must say I find some of the Europeans very short-fused about this kind of thing, having just been at Indianapolis. But Patrese was shaking his head, and he just walked on. I think that
of course, he's the man that won Monaco, the most recent GP, and he suddenly was having a resurgence and a real chance in the World Championship, so I guess I can understand his disappointment. It all happened very quickly down here, and fortunately, at least as it looks at the moment, nobody was hurt. Back up to you, Jim.
Okay, Sam, thanks very much. Of course, there were some fuses in Indy last week that weren't all that long after the accident before the start of the race. Now, Chris Katamaki is down, I believe, with the race leader, Alain Prost. Chris?
Yes, Alain, I saw it when you stopped the brakes of smoking. What kind of condition is your car now?
I think the car is nearly perfect. Surrounding is very good. The engine is running very good, but my problem is the brakes.
The brakes?
4 or 5 laps, brakes are not so good, and the smoke is not a problem, but brakes are going very hot.
You see Rosberg in your mirror?
No, but I knew that he was about 3 seconds behind me, and it's difficult to lead the race, because if I have some trouble on brakes on this kind of track, it will be very difficult.
You broke a toe in Monte Carlo. How is your foot and your toe now today?
It's not too bad, but it's not perfect. The problem is to do 70 laps here. It's very difficult for me, because when I brake, it's a bit painful on my foot. So it depends on if the race is very hard or not, and if I have some brakes or not, because if the pedal is too long, I have a big problem to brake.
But you're still smiling, and good luck to you, Alain. Back to you, Jim McKay.
Okay, we want to reiterate the situation for you and set it once again. Now, if you are a little bit confused, don't worry about it, because even Prost there didn't have the number of laps correctly. As of yesterday, they said it was a 70-lap race, or 2 hours in running time, whichever comes first. This morning, they changed it to 75 laps, or 2 hours, whichever comes first. It seems certain that they will not run either 70 or 75 laps in 2 hours here. So it's going to be a 2-hour race of running time. But let's do this restart business once again. You tell me if I'm right, that they have stopped the race, they have red flagged it. When they started again, they'll be in the order of standings that they were when the red flag came out. But then it's on a total time basis. It's not like closing up under a restart in NASCAR or Indianapolis. It's going to be a bit confusing.
It'll be a restart in the position that the cars crossed the finishing line the lap before the red flag was shown, so that nobody could take advantage in the last few hundred yards. So, yes, they will restart. They'll start in the positions that the cars crossed that line the lap before, so you'll get, in other words, Eddie Cheever will be in 6th position of the starting grid, unlike what he was in the original position, because that, as you may remember, was, I believe, held by Jack O'Malley. So, therefore, the whole grid has changed, but we will see another start. The start procedure will be exactly the same. Once again, a standing start, as it always is in Grand Prix racing.
However, the first car across the finish line at the finish will not necessarily be the winner, because the time will be added together. They don't do that in American racing. It'll be total running time for each car that counts. A little more news in the pits from Chrissy Katamaki with Keke Rosberg.
Keke, you were doing extremely well. Are there any places on the circuit where your car is better than Prost Renault?
Everywhere.
You sound like a car salesman. Seriously, where is the best place on the circuit for you?
I don't know. There isn't one particular place on the track. I think I was just a marginal quicker everywhere, and I know that he's on different tires than I am, so, and he's got a turbo, it suffers from brakes, so by pushing him hard we'll be all right, no problem.
Okay, what about the surface of the bumps? Are they more difficult for you, or the same for Prost and you?
They're the same for everybody, you know. Everybody has a head on the shoulders, and that's where it hurts.
You have a confident feel to yourself. You think you'll win today, Keke?
Yes, I will.
There you go. Keke Rosberg, a confident man waiting for the restart. Back to you, Jim.
He's good everywhere on the course and better than anybody else, and yes, I will. I will win. Look at the shot from the Goodyear blimp high overhead down on the Renaissance Center. We're going to take a commercial break here. Going to go to a commercial in 5, 4, 3, 2, and you may go anytime you wish. Well, there are the cars slowly being reordered on the starting grid, waiting for a restart in the Detroit Grand Prix. It's not raining. There has not been a major accident. There was a rather small incident on the race course. The Cesaris of Italy's car was put out of the race by it. A fire started in the engine compartment. after he had an incident with Guerrero of Colombia. And it's very unusual to see a Grand Prix race stopped under these circumstances if you've just joined us right now. But it has been stopped, it will be restarted, and the winner will be determined on a total time basis. Now, right now we've got this sheet, Jackie, and Prost is a matter of 3.2 seconds ahead of Keke Rosberg of Finland, but on the restart there'll probably only be a fraction of a second behind, so we'll explain that more as we go along. Right now, I said at the beginning that they'll be going over manhole covers in this race and trolley car tracks and under traffic lights. Well, Sam Posey earlier did a little piece on the obstructions and different things on this track.
The course may appear to be pretty smooth, but when you remember that these ground effect cars, in order to work properly, need incredibly stiff springs. The springs are 10 times stiffer than they are in a passenger car. It suddenly means that any irregularity at all in the track surface transmits a tremendous jarring effect to both the car and the driver. Now, I'm just at a point of the track a little bit after the hairpin at the intersection of Chrysler and Larned Streets, looking at a storm drain that happens to be right in the line where the cars are going to have to go. There's another storm drain just beyond me, also in the line. Now, going over these rough areas, a car will not lose its ground effect suction, but it will be thrown very sharply, and the driver will be a terrific shock to the driver's body, which will tire him considerably as the race goes on. Let's go on around the track and have another look at the rest of it. Further down Larned Avenue, the drivers will encounter a veritable minefield of these manhole covers with steam coming out of them. You'll be crossing this manhole cover at over 130 miles an hour. If you try to miss one, well, then there are others here on the same straightaway. Some of these bumps are severe enough to cause the bottom of the cars to scrape along the track, despite the stiffness of the car's suspension. Finally, here in front of Cobo Hall, these trolley tracks cross the course. Now, we've only seen a few of the many bumps around the track. And if you're only doing a few laps in a racing car, well, they're not too bad. But when you try to race for almost 2 hours, they add immeasurably to the driver's fatigue.
Well, again, while we have the chance to explain this situation, let me put it another way. When this race is restarted, let us suppose that Rosberg is in second place now, trailing by 3.2 seconds, passes Prost, who is the current leader. Well, let's say he takes a 3-second lead. If Rosberg takes a 3-second lead over Prost, he's still 0.2 of a second behind, because it's the total time added together that's going to determine the winner of this first Detroit Grand Prix. It's something different, as we said, for American racing.
Well, that's true, because the penalty, of course, of stopping may help others, may help some of the drivers and some of the cars, but I doubt it very much. I think when we look at the grid and we see the cars, some of them stripped off, Jim, to try and allow the brakes and the engines and the transmissions to cool just a little bit, you see the concern the mechanics have. So seldom do the mechanics ever get an opportunity to have a look at their racing cars after they've done a few hot laps around a Grand Prix racetrack. So they're all hoping now, and I think the fact that Alain Prost mentioned his brakes is a very clear indication that that team is worried. I think the mechanical factor here, the attrition factor, could really be a major issue in this motor race. So I think we can expect not only brake troubles, as I did say earlier, but also probably transmission and potentially suspension problems. Very tight racetrack, very difficult, very demanding. But then again, that's what Grand Prix racing is all about. It's not just a test of the driver, it's also a test of the machinery.
Chris Economaki right now is with the only American driver in the race, Eddie Cheever, who's doing quite well. Chris?
Eddie, you're looking very well on the circuit. Your 12-cylinder car. Is it the right engine for this kind of a circuit?
Our car and engine are going well this morning. I'm a bit annoyed you have to stop the race because everybody else is putting on the same set of tires that we had, and I had a definite advantage over everybody.
Really? Do you think it was right to have stopped the race?
I think for security reasons, it's always good to stop a race. I don't believe in driving in a circuit condition, in a dangerous circuit condition.
One said it's tires A versus tires B on that. How much of a difference does that make?
Enormous. On a 2-hour race, if you run with 2 stops of a compound after 5-6 laps, you're already in trouble. In fact, the 2 cars that were in front of me, both the Alfa and the Lotus, were having tire problems, and I was cruising. So I'm very annoyed that they stopped the race on one side, but I think it's always good for safety reasons to see. I didn't really see the reason why they did stop it, though.
Okay, Eddie Cheever, a little bit annoyed. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, and the race still at a standstill. We begin to wonder now why it is taking so long to get the cars reordered and the race restarted, since the incident was not of a major nature. As far as we can see, the track has been completely cleared. However, we're going to have another couple of minutes. That is quite obvious. There's still mechanics and people all over the race course at this point. Jackie Stewart a little bit earlier did a piece taking us inside a Formula One race car. Very hard to see inside any modern race car. Everything is so tight now. But he had the opportunity. Let's take a look at that piece.
A Formula One Grand Prix car is a slick and almost perfect aerodynamic shape for the job it does. But underneath this thin skin is in fact a mass of engineering wizardry. With the fiberglass bodywork off, you can see the confines of where the driver sits. With the bodywork on, it would cover over this water radiator on this side, the oil radiator over here. The steering wheel, very small. It's only 10.5 inches diameter, mildly padded and very thin, allows the driver to go from lock to lock and then go to full left lock, for example, to get round the tight hairpin. Not much to confuse the driver in this dashboard, only 1 gauge left. The rev counter up to 11,000 revs in this Ford Cosworth engine. This light here only comes on if the oil pressure drops too low. On the right-hand side of the cockpit here, an adjustment for brake balance. If you want more brake on the rear, you do this. If you want more braking efficiency on the front, you turn it this way. Down here further on the right is the gear shift. 5 forward gears, 1 gear for reverse. On the left-hand side of the dashboard, this here is a self-starter. If the driver spins out on the racetrack, stalls his engine, he would pull that to restart it. Right here is the fire extinguisher switch. That sets off an extinguisher in the cockpit and also around the engine. The ignition switch, an electric fuel pump to start the engine up with. This here is a light that, in the case of heavy rain, a high-intensity light goes on in the rear so that cars following can see the car in front. This here is a cold start, would you believe? In cold mornings, to try and assist it, a retarder for the ignition to start. Right down here, they call it the kill switch. In the case of an emergency, this would come into operation, switch everything off electronically. Seat belts, they're made for emergencies. Just as we should always wear them in our street cars, race drivers always do wear them. 6-point fastener, 2 between the legs to stop him from submarining or going under his seat belts. 2 shoulder harnesses and, of course, the waistband. Now, these would normally hold a driver into a car. Recently, there was a dreadful accident in Belgium where Gilles Villeneuve died and was thrown out of the car. But that was an extremely unusual accident because the car totally destroyed itself around the driver. If an accident does occur and fire is involved, there is a medical air supply that plugs into the helmet of that driver. This is not oxygen because oxygen does burn. A driver can be trapped in a car for up to 1 minute while his rescuers try to get him out.
Okay, Jackie Stewart earlier in the cockpit. There's the Renaissance Center once again. The view from the Goodyear Blimp Enterprise from Pompano Beach, Florida. There it is. Captained by Captain Mike Fitzpatrick from Newport, Rhode Island. Enterprise, Goodyear's newest blimp, by the way. One of only 4 blimps in the world. My goodness, I can remember way back in World War II, and the U.S. Navy used to have a whole fleet of blimps that would patrol, Jackie, out in front doing anti-submarine patrol. But now it's down to 4.
De Detroit. Você tem aí, oficialmente agora pela pressão norte-americana, as posições, as 6 primeiras posições, após as 6 primeiras voltas. Ele está na 7ª, 12ª posição. De Nick Lauda, passando por Jacques Laffite. Aí Alan Prost, conversando com Keke Rosberg. Mais uma vez, explicamos que tivemos sérios problemas de canalização de satélite. A saída da imagem aqui dos Estados Unidos para que a Rede Globo pudesse receber essas imagens para você acompanhar desde o início e, como sempre, mais uma vez com exclusividade, o Grande Prêmio de Detroit. Portanto, apenas a partir da 6ª volta, nós conseguimos a imagem, fazer com que a imagem saísse aqui dos Estados Unidos para que pudesse chegar até a Rede Globo no Brasil. E já pegamos a prova parada, depois do acidente de Ricardo Patrese e Roberto Guerreiro. E você vai ver de novo agora por que já estamos com a paralisação de mais de 20 minutos. Quando Patrese se enroscou com Roberto Guerreiro, os 2 carros ficaram atravessados de forma perigosa na pista.
And the race was stopped. It's been stopped for better than a half an hour now. Latest word we have is that it may be a good many more minutes before they restart again, but that's not official. Here are the standings in the race. You see 7th through 12th place there, right there. That's not the leaders, 7th through 12th. Nicky Lauda, the former world champion, doing quite well. Sam Posey has been wandering around at various areas on the course. He might have some information for us. Sam?
Well, Jim, you know, it just seems interesting to me that we've been talking here about an enormously sophisticated sport. Jackie mentioned this at the beginning. These cars are probably the most expensive automobiles in the world. And yet, what happens when an accident occurs? They run into these old tires that have been put around the track. Look at these things. The tread is all worn away. They're complete junkers. This seems like the total contrast to the sophistication of the racing cars. And yet, these tire walls, as they're called, tire barriers, are some of the most effective ways known to man to arrest a car that's out of control. Not only the this simple method of strapping them together with a nylon strap keeps them from exploding apart and rolling all over the racetrack. It's kind of a small thing, and it's fairly new, curiously, in the world of Grand Prix, only the last 4 or 5 years. And if you're thinking, well, maybe we should have something like this at Indianapolis, it doesn't really work except in slow turns. If you careened into this at a very high speed, the tires would go all over the place. If you think back to Gordon Smiley's crash at Indianapolis, it really wouldn't work there. But it's ideal for city courses like this, and this accident we had this afternoon would have extensively damaged all 3 cars that were involved without these tires. As it was, they were hardly hurt at all, which I think, Jim, is good news. Practice makes perfect, maybe even in the safety area.
Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You were down there. You saw the incident occur. Would you have red flagged it?
Well, I like what Eddie Cheever said, Jim. Why take a chance? Everything is new here. You see, Patrese car was on fire. We have to realize that, and it could have exploded suddenly. I mean, there was quite a blaze at the back. I think that the decision may very well have come from somebody that was on my side, or had been relayed to the chief steward from somebody that was on my side of that and saw the fire. Nobody else did. I think the fire made it a major risk. Actually, as for whether the track was blocked, no, it really wasn't. There was plenty of room to race by. The incident was all on the outside of the track. You can see there the whiteness where Patrese went in. The other cars were beyond that, well out of the line.
Okay, thanks very much, Sam Posey, out there on the race course as we continue to come to you live from the streets of Detroit. Now, again, maybe you joined us thinking, well, I'm going to watch the second hour of the Detroit Grand Prix. If you have just joined us by any chance, the race has been stopped. It's been stopped for a good long while now. It appears that it may be, I don't know, another 10 or 15 minutes perhaps before they restart the race. They only did 6 laps. Prost of France is leading, and Rosberg of Finland is in second place. When they resume, they'll start in their order of position in the race on a starting grid, but we'll fill you in on that. We're going back to New York right now. We'll return later. Live in Detroit. Still no racing going on. You may hear the sound of racing engines, but they're warming them up. They've been doing minor repairs to the cars. What are they allowed to do at this point? There's a car on the race course, for example.
Mansell, the car of Mansell, the Lotus, coming back onto the what they call the dummy grid. What will happen now is that those cars will be allowed to have any work done on them at all.
Anything to what?
Even if they had time to change an engine, Jim.
Which they don't.
Which they don't, but they could have done. They can change the skirts of the aerodynamic assistance. They can change tires. They can fill it up with gas. They can do anything at all. Of course, the cars that are already out of the race, such as Patrese's car and Guerra's car that were involved in the little incident that stopped the race. And incidentally, I've just had the message on. I spoke to Patrese when I went out onto the starting grid there. What occurred was Guerra spun. John Watson, who was behind him in the McLaren, had to brake very, very heavily, and Patrese, to avoid hitting Watson, got it into the marbles or out onto the loose stuff, lost control, spun off and hit the wall. So that was the reason for the problem of taking out Patrese, who, as you may remember, won the Grand Prix of Monaco, seen, of course, in ABC's Wide World of Sports. So now the cars are being serviced by the mechanics. They can do anything they like to them, as I said. A lot of them have taken...
But if they could fix Patrese's car, could it go back in the race?
No. He is officially out of the race. He's finished. He cannot come back in because the red flag did not go out until they passed the start-finishing line. So he is officially out of the race.
You have complicated rules in Formula One, Jackie.
Well, it's...
I thought it was a simple sport.
It's for simple men, but it's not a simple sport. No, but nowadays, now the mechanics are really working hard in the cars, trying to get the temperatures down, of course, topping them up with fuel, trying to get... They can change tyres as well, so therefore any tyre temperature that was affected before, if the driver felt that his tyres were not behaving correctly, they can, of course, change them. The bodywork in the Tag Williams cars, for instance, were all taken off so that the cars could breathe more easily, the water coolers could cool more quickly, etc.
Okay, only 6 laps have gone by, another scheduled 69, but it'll really be a 2-hour total time race. Well, let's see, they're going to start in a matter of minutes now, about 12, 13 minutes. Why don't we take a break and then return to Detroit? Okay, back again live in Detroit. Jim McKay with Jackie Stewart here. The race has still not been restarted. The first information from the stewards was that they'd restart about 3:20 Eastern time, then 3:25, then 3:30. They're now saying the last word we have from them is 3:25. As you can imagine, all sorts of furious rearrangements going on. As they said, once again, 3:35, the most recent figure they gave us. Standings in the race, of course, remaining the same as you see. There will be a restart in the order in which they were placed in the race at the time the red flag went out after a comparatively minor incident. So we're going to take one more break, then come back, and I think they'll be started fairly soon. Back again in Detroit, where the latest word is now, I believe I just heard them say 5 minutes they're talking about for the restart of the race. As you look from high overhead, and now you're back in the commentary position with Jackie Stewart and me. So the incident was right down here shortly after the first turn, Jackie. Everybody now trying to get revved up again for the race, having tried to redo their travel arrangements and things. Nobody more anxious to get back home again, by the way, than our man Sam Posey, whose wife Ellen had their first child about 3:30 Friday afternoon, and he's just waiting to get home. John Jameson Posey, welcome to the world. However, why don't we take another look at this race course, Jackie? You explained it to us once before. Now with the point of view of what has happened and transpired in the race to this point, why don't we look at it once more again? A point of view, subjective view of the course in Detroit.
Well, the car we're in fact going to be looking at, and there you see the graphic of the Grand Prix of Detroit. I remind you, it's a 2.5-mile racetrack with 20 corners around it. Very tough on the driver, very tough on the car. And in fact, the car that we're sitting in right now with our camera, so to speak, is the car of Alan Prost, who not only is leading the World Championship, but leading this very race, so it's very apt. And it's just at this corner, in fact, that the incident occurred. Guerrero spun, and John Watson braked very hard, and Patrese went into him right about here, in fact. So Alan Prost's car being driven now and accelerating hard with about 600 horsepower. Now, this was a warm-up lap for Alan Prost, so you're hearing engine sounds that you would not normally hear. We raced towards this beautiful Renaissance Centre, then turn right and go uphill a little bit, and this is where road racing is so different from the ovals of the stock cars or Indianapolis, and around these right-hand bends as well as left-hand bends, and seldom do you have a church in the approach to one of your corners. It was in the corner coming up now that the first lap incident occurred, where one of the drivers went straight on there. So it's a very slow corner, about 30 miles an hour here, so no damage was done. They accelerate along to Congress, and again, the sort of between 500 and 600 brake horsepower really come into play, and you can almost burn rubber as you accelerate along this straight stretch to about 140, brake hard through this left-hand bend, and it's on those hard braking sections that the brakes really get hot and can potentially cause a problem, particularly to the Alan Prost Renault car, because it has to carry more fuel than the normally aspirated Ford engines, for example, so they're a little heavier. So Alan Prost is going to have to be a little bit gentle with his braking and often with his transmission, because here we're accelerating towards the Cobo Hall here, the convention center, in second gear. We'll remember all that horsepower, churning that rear suspension, churning that transmission, and again it gets heavily bumped over these trolley rails there as it goes down towards the confines, and the great sound and resilience of these, in this case, 6-cylinder engines. Some of them are 8 cylinders, and the Alfa Romeos have 12 cylinders, a normally aspirated 12-cylinder for the Alfa Romeo. De Cesare is out of the race, one of the leading Alfa drivers, and then they go through this great tunnel where, of course, difficult for light if oil is on the racetrack. Another slow right-hander in second gear, followed immediately as we go onto the Detroit River and accelerate towards the chicane, which is the final corner here. You can go right round the chicane, as Prost's car will, or turn left into the pit lane, and of course many of the cars went in there for service. We're back now, as you can see, on the racetrack. Many of the drivers back in, and there you see the order of finish. The lap before, we had a red flag here in Detroit. If some of you who have just joined us did not know, the race was stopped. Nobody was injured, but we're just about ready ready for a restart.
We might point out that the reason that the delay has been so long, we might say again, is because of the regulations of Formula One. They have to wait a certain length of time. We'll be back.
And Winkelhock, disconsolately after a fine 5th position, is in the pits. Well, to the confusion of everybody, it got sorted out in the end, and an hour later, we now see Alain Prost in his...
Bem, amigos da Rede Globo, nós voltamos com imagens desde o circuito de Detroit, nos Estados Unidos. Depois de 1 hora de paralisação, do acidente que envolveu Ricardo Patrese e Roberto Guerreiro, vamos para a segunda largada. Nós vamos para a segunda largada, mais uma volta de apresentação, mais uma volta de aquecimento do pneu, e aí sim, os carros voltarão às suas posições originais. Entenda-se bem, as suas posições originais ao final da 6ª volta, no momento do acidente em que a prova foi interrompida há mais de 1 hora atrás. Laffite em primeiro, Keke Rosberg em segundo, Pironi em terceiro, Mansell em quarto, Giacomelli em quinto, Eddie Cheever em sexto, Nick Lauda em sétimo, Jacques Laffite em oitavo, Derek Daly em nono, René Arnoux em décimo, Hélio de Angelis em 11º, Jochen Maas em 12º, John Watson em 13º, são 18 carros no total, Chico Serra está na 16ª posição. Raul Boesel, que bateu com Mauro Baldi nas primeiras voltas, está fora da prova. Ele até teria condições de voltar à prova desde que fosse com o mesmo carro, se o seu carro pudesse ser recuperado. Mas isso não foi possível em função do seu choque com Mauro Baldi, e assim Raul Boesel fica de fora. Mas ele está aqui ao nosso lado e daqui a pouco vai dizer o que ele sentiu de toda essa confusão, de tudo isso que aconteceu, de 1 hora de paralisação, de uma pista tão criticada, quando todos esperavam exatamente isso, que uma batida pudesse paralisar por tempo indeterminado uma prova. E vejam, uma prova da importância de uma prova do Campeonato Mundial de Fórmula 1 nesse ano de 1982. É importante que se explique também o seguinte: os carros largam nessas posições. Mas, por exemplo, vejam, o Jacques Laffite, que é o 8º, ele está 19 segundos e 45 centésimos atrás do Alain Prost. Se porventura ele chegar exatamente na frente do Alain Prost no final da prova, ele não será o vencedor. Ele, para vencer a prova, precisa chegar mais de 19 segundos e 45 centésimos à frente do Prost. O Chico Serra, por exemplo, está em 16º, 20 segundos atrás do 17º, que é o Brian Hanson. Não adianta ele simplesmente passar o Brian Hanson. Ele tem que passar o Brian Hanson e abrir mais de 20 segundos. Portanto, será computado o tempo. Num total de 65 voltas ou 2 horas, nós temos mais 69 voltas ou, precisamente, 1 hora, 48 minutos, 27 segundos e 42 centésimos. Esse é o tempo máximo de realização da prova. 1 hora, 48 minutos e 42 centésimos. Ou 69 voltas. E aí será computado o tempo dos pilotos nas 2 provas, como se fossem 2 baterias. Ou seja, o Raul Boesel, se estivesse correndo, estaria se lembrando do seu tempo de Stock Car no Brasil, na soma de tempo das 2 baterias. Vamos, portanto, agora, você acompanhando com exclusividade na Globo, a segunda largada do Grande Prêmio de Fórmula 1 de Detroit de 1982. Vamos à largada. Vai acender a luz vermelha. Aí está. A disputa de Alain Prost e Keke Rosberg. Também Didier Pironi assumindo a 3ª posição. Alain Prost em primeiro, Rosberg em segundo, Pironi em terceiro. Bruno Giacomelli é o 4º colocado. São os 4 primeiros nessa segunda largada. Veja bem, Alain Prost, depois Rosberg, depois Pironi, depois Bruno Giacomelli. Os 4 primeiros nessa volta, que é de número 7. Daqui a volta, a corrida foi interrompida na 6ª volta. Aí na primeira curva realmente fechada do circuito, Prost, Rosberg, Pironi, De Cesaris, Giacomelli e Eddie Cheever. Chico Serra sustentando a 16ª posição. Aí Aí passando Cheever, depois Ardu, depois Nick Lauda, Hélio de Angelis. Esse é o líder, Alain Prost, tendo atrás de si Keke Rosberg, logo atrás Didier Pironi. Alain Prost, ganhador de número 15. Rosberg, Williams, número 6 dúzia, Pironi, Ferrari 28. Bruno Giacomelli, Alfa Romeo, de número 23. Aí Alain Prost, passando por sob a ponte, ele vai para o túnel. A entrada do túnel vai se encaminhando para completar a primeira volta dessa segunda largada, ou seja, a 7ª volta da prova. Prost, Rosberg, Pironi, Bruno Giacomelli. Já na chicane que dá acesso à reta dos boxes, aí vem Alain Prost. Completando a 7ª volta. Rosberg, Pironi, Eddie Cheever, Ardu, Nick Lauda, Derek Daly, Jacques Laffite, Jockemar, Eddie Grande, John Watson, Cristiano Moreto, Brian Hanson, Jacques Laffite, Chico Serra. Passando na 18ª posição, Chico Serra, ele estava na 16ª posição nesta segunda largada. Portanto, confirmando em primeiro Alain Prost, em segundo Keke Rosberg, em terceiro Didier Pironi, em quarto Bruno Giacomelli, em quinto Eddie Cheever, em sexto René Arnoux, são os 6 primeiros colocados. Enquanto você vai acompanhando as imagens, nós vamos conversar com o Raul Moedas e ele vai nos explicar mais ou menos o que aconteceu, toda essa confusão e toda a dificuldade que é correr nesse circuito. É difícil, né, Raul?
Bom, o problema que acontece nessas pistas de rua é que Long Beach e aqui Detroit não tem o mesmo sistema que Mônaco. Em Mônaco, quando acontece alguma coisa, eles têm os guinchos que retiram o carro, quer dizer, levantam o carro da pista e colocam em algum lugar seguro. Aqui, como não tem esse sistema, eles têm que colocar, se acontece algum acidente, eles têm que colocar algum guincho para retirar o carro, certo? Algum reboque. Então, isso fica muito perigoso, você continuar a corrida com o reboque na pista, certo? Então, o único jeito é paralisar a prova e dar uma nova largada e computar os tempos.
Com você, exatamente o que aconteceu no começo da prova com o Mauro Mal?
Eu dei uma boa largada, acho que foi a melhor largada de todas as provas desse ano minha. E eu larguei em 21º. No hairpin, que é o baixo, certo? Ele faz então, como eu dei uma boa largada, já estava atrás veio e deu uma batida por trás, quebrou minha asa, tudo, quer dizer, sem condições de continuar a prova. Foi meia volta de corrida.
E o circuito? Ele permite uma corrida de Fórmula 1, porque eu andava agora nessa paralisação pelo grid largada, conversei com o Emerson, com o Chico, com alguns pilotos presentes, muitas críticas a respeito do circuito, já todo mundo prevendo que isso poderia acontecer. Você acha que esse circuito de rua, com essa pista estreita, comporta o Fórmula 1 de hoje?
Bom, o que acontece é que tanto Long Beach como Mônaco, vamos dizer, são pistas similares como essa, certo? Você não pode criticar nesse ponto. A única crítica é que não tem os guinchos para retirar os carros quando ocorre algum acidente que venha a prejudicar a prova, certo? Essa acho que é a única crítica que pode ser feita. Agora, como aqui é primeiro ano, já surgiram vários atrasos durante o treino por causa que os pilotos estavam reclamando de algumas curvas que não eram suficientemente seguras, os guarda-reis não eram suficientemente seguros, certo? Então, claro que estava sendo previsto, todo mundo tinha que tomar cuidado já na largada, durante a prova, para não ocorrer essa paralisação, mas numa corrida sabe que isso é imprevisível, certo? Essas batidas. Eu acho que o maior motivo de tudo isso é por ser a primeira vez aqui, certo?
Aí, portanto, você teve a opinião exclusiva naquele jogo de Raul Moedas. Ele continua conosco aqui assistindo um pouco da prova. depois volta e tem a sua opinião sobre o desenvolvimento desse grande prêmio de Detroit de Fórmula 1 de 1982. Terceira volta completada depois da paralisação, ou seja, nona volta completada de um total de 65. O líder é Alan Prost, em segundo Keke Rosberg, em terceiro Didier Pironi, em quarto Bruno Giacomelli, em quinto Eddie Cheever, em sexto Nick Lauda, em sétimo Nigel Mansell, em oitavo René Arnoux, em nono Jacques Laffite, em décimo Derek Daly. René Arnoux, em nono Jacques Laffite, em décimo Derek Daly. Mundial 82, todos em ação, torcendo por um Brasil campeão.
There is Prost. This is lap 4. And when I give you lap numbers, it is for the second part of the race. Remember, 6 others in the first part.
Well, looking at the way Prost is driving at the moment, it looks horribly like a Prost benefit to me. I think I get the feeling he's already eased up a little and is not going absolutely flat out. He's driving...
Aí vem Alan Prost. Está com uma boa vantagem para Keke Rosberg. Comprovando tudo aquilo que fez nos treinos de classificação. Alan Prost vai tomando a ponta. Aí mais uma vez a entrada no túnel para Alan Prost. Vejam já a boa vantagem que ele abre para Keke Rosberg, que é o segundo colocado. Alan Prost é o líder do Campeonato Mundial. Keke Rosberg é o quarto colocado. 4 pontos de diferença entre Alan Prost e Keke Rosberg. Aí o que os pilotos reclamaram: o desnível excessivo da pista, a suspensão muito dura do Fórmula 1 atual, em função do efeito solo, e que obriga o piloto exatamente a ir um pulo constante na pista. A passagem de Alan Prost. A pista realmente é... do boxe, o pessoal está bem logo no lado esquerdo. Isso é para desviar alguns buracos que tem na reta do boxe aqui. Aí o Raul Wesley. Agora acompanha conosco aqui em Detroit, ao vivo pela Rede Globo, o Grande Prêmio de Fórmula 1 Detroit 1982. Vê a vantagem que os turcos estão tendo esse ano e o desenvolvimento, que antes eles só levavam vantagem em pista de alta velocidade, e agora em todas as pistas de baixa velocidade, as Renault têm um desempenho fenomenal. Quer dizer, você vê o desenvolvimento do carro, que o motor Ford já não está conseguindo ser mais rápido nem em curvas nem em circuitos de baixa velocidade, como foi o caso de Mônaco e aqui o caso de Detroit. Aí a confirmação do que diz Raul Wesley, o Alan Prost na ponta. Alan Prost o primeiro, Rosberg o segundo, Pironi, Giacomelli, Cheever e Lauda. Já 7 segundos e 60 centésimos a vantagem de Alan Prost para Keke Rosberg. Era de 3 segundos e 29 a vantagem de Prost para Rosberg, enquanto a paralisação da prova ao final da sexta volta. Mais uma vez a passagem de Alan Prost no túnel. Após essa curva à esquerda, o acesso a chicane que dá entrada à reta dos boxes do circuito de Detroit. Exatamente aí a chicane. Primeira tomada à esquerda, segunda à direita. Você vê como logo depois da curva ele vai pôr o carro pro lado esquerdo. Todos fazem o mesmo trajeto. Isso para desviar os buracos e a curva. Você pode perceber a diferença do nível do asfalto. Esse cuidado do piloto na trajetória. Repare bem agora. Você ia vendo ali como o piloto faz a curva normalmente. Ele vai fora. Ele tem que buscar uma nova trajetória para em cima da suspensão do carro. É Cheever que é o quinto colocado. Chico Serra na 18ª posição. Ele largou em 26º, estava em 16º. No momento da paralisação da prova, na 18ª posição e apenas 18 carros dos 26 que largaram continuam na prova. Pironi, acompanhado de perto por Bruno Giacomelli, que traz também próximo a si Eddie Cheever. O Ligier de número 25. Repare como a pista é estreita, sinuosa, quase não há reta. A cada uma curva é imediatamente uma outra. O que sacrifica demais o piloto no seu trabalho de buscar a trajetória correta para um melhor desenvolvimento na pista. Repare aí, mal ele faz a saída da curva, ele já tem que buscar a tomada para uma outra curva a seguir, que invariavelmente vem para o outro lado. É muita mão de obra para o piloto, além das sequentes mudança de marcha, o uso constante no freio, que deve criar inclusive um problema para todos os carros, se bem que a velocidade não é excessiva e o castigo no freio não é tão grande.
Não, aqui o uso de freio é bastante grande, porque já com as 6 primeiras voltas que foram dadas, a maioria estava reclamando que o freio já estava ruim, o pedal, quando acontece isso, o pedal abaixa, certo? É uma pista que vai exigir muito pneu, freio, vai exigir muito porque você vê que a maioria das pistas ou são 70 voltas ou 2 horas de prova, certo? Ou 75 voltas, que é o período. Aqui, 75 voltas, mas você não consegue dar 75 voltas. Normalmente a prova vai ter 75 voltas. O que nas outras provas geralmente ocorre 1 hora e meia de corrida. E aqui, por um circuito que exige do piloto, 2 horas de prova, quer dizer, vai ser pouco.
Aí o Pironi acompanhado de muito perto por Bruno Giacomelli. Uma disputa que vale a 3ª posição. A tentativa por fora de Giacomelli, a preferência da curva à direita para Pironi. Na aproximação de Giacomelli, a presença também perigosa logo atrás de Eddie Cheever. 3 carros disputando a 3ª posição. Uma Ferrari, uma Alfa e uma Ligier, 3 motores diferentes, um motor turbo, um motor Alfa Romeo e um motor Matra. Uma disputa toda particular nessa altura pela 3ª posição do Grande Prêmio de Detroit de Fórmula 1. E você percebe, pela facilidade com que se aproxima o Giacomelli, de que não é bom o rendimento da Ferrari de Didier Pironi. Mas é que é muito difícil achar um ponto de ultrapassagem nesse circuito. Não há reta para se aproveitar o vácuo e tentar a ultrapassagem. E mesmo a velocidade não é tão grande assim que um retardo no uso do freio possa permitir esse ponto de ultrapassagem ao piloto. Ainda Pironi, Giacomelli e Eddie Cheever. Escarrou um pouquinho, mais Eddie Cheever enquanto o Giacomelli. Lá atrás aparecendo também o carro de Nick Lauda, que é o 6º colocado. Agora na reta dos blocos. Pironi, Giacomelli e Cheever. O carro do Pironi. Ele já permitiu que Rosberg e Prêmio fugissem muito à frente. Permita também uma maior aproximação do carro de Nick Lauda. E daqui a pouco pode passar a participar dessa briga pelo 3º lugar. Vejam aí, não há diferença de Pironi para Giacomelli e para Cheever.
O que acontece é que as Alfa e a no miolo, elas são mais rápidas que a Ferrari, mas não conseguem passar, certo? E quando tem alguma reta, como é o caso na frente do box aqui, a Ferrari, por ter mais potência, ela consegue se distanciar da Alfa e da Ligier.
Ainda Pironi, Giacomelli e Cheever. À frente você pode ver, fugindo da imagem, o carro de Keke Rosberg, que é o 2º colocado. Rosberg está 8 segundos atrás de Alain Prost, com 25 minutos de prova. Depois de 13 voltas, essa é a volta de número 14. De um total de 65 voltas ou um prazo máximo de 2 horas de competição. Outra vez no túnel. Pironi, Giacomelli e Cheever. Está se aproximando bastante. Nick Lauda, bem no meio.
Com a briga dos 3, Nick Lauda, que vem sem disputar a posição com ninguém, é fácil para ele chegar nos 3 que estão disputando. Agora ele vai chegar ali e também vai ser duro para ele ganhar uma posição.
Vejam aí, a aproximação de Giacomelli. essa briga que você vê aí. Pironi, Jacques Laffite, Cheever e Nick Lauda. Até a 6ª posição. O Arthur já ficou mais para trás em 7º, também o Derek Daly em 8º. O Laffite em 9º e Nigel Mansell em 10º. Os 10 primeiros colocados. Depois de 14... Chico Serra continua na 18ª posição. Lauda efetivamente já participa aí da disputa por esse 3º lugar. Já consegue uma boa aproximação em relação a Eddie Cheever. Ou seja, Didier Pironi diminuiu o ritmo de corrida de todos os carros que vêm ali atrás e permitiu um enorme espaço entre ele e Keke Rosberg. Essa altura, 16 segundos já. A diferença de Rosberg, que está em segundo, para Pironi, que é o 3º.
Exatamente porque no miolo os de trás estão mais rápidos, mas nas retas a Ferrari, por ser mais rápida e por ter maior potência de motor, que é o motor turbo, e nos pontos de ultrapassagem ela está bem mais à frente do Giacomelli. Quer dizer, vai ser bem difícil de passar. O Pironi tem algum problema ou comenta com ele.
A diferença do Prost para o Rosberg, que era de 8 segundos, cai essa altura para 6 segundos, ponto 8. Tirando, portanto, 2 segundos de desvantagem. Aí está. Falando forte na reta, o motor da Ferrari conseguindo abrir um pouco em relação à Bruna. Próximo a Cheever e Lauda. Voltou a subir a diferença de 6,8 para mais de 7 segundos. Já no próximo, para Keke Rosberg, que é o 2º colocado.
Essa pista vai exigir muito de câmbio, que durante toda a prova serão mais de 2.000 mudanças de marcha. Você imaginar o que sofre um câmbio?
E o próprio piloto.
O próprio piloto, tá, mas... Não.
15 voltas completadas de um total de 65 no Grande Prêmio de Detroit de Fórmula 1. A liderança de Alan Prost, Mundial 82. Todos em ação torcendo por um Brasil campeão. Aí vem Didier Pironi e a sua Ferrari de número 28. Aí no ponto de mais velocidade antes dessa curva do circuito, onde uma reta permite um melhor desenvolvimento, ou seja, um envolvimento até mais essa curva é tomada em que marcha?
Primeira.
Quase primeira. Uma velocidade mais ou menos de quanto?
É a curva mais lenta. Faz em primeira uns 80 km por hora. 70 km.
Aí vem Lauda. Lauda, que é o 6º colocado no campeonato. McLaren de número 8. Atrás de Pironi, Giacomelli e Eddie Cheever. Aí mais uma vez a disputa pelo 3º lugar. Quando a diferença volta a cair. E ela próxima para Keke Rosberg. Você não acompanha na imagem, mas ela cai para 6 segundos, ponto 62. Isso depois da 16ª volta, estamos na volta de número 17, de um total de 65. Vamos conferir na passagem dos dois líderes, de ela próxima e Keke Rosberg, à nossa frente, aqui na reta dos boxes, a diferença. atual é de 1,91. Somados aos 3,29 foi paralisada, nós temos pouco mais de 5 segundos de vantagem de Alain Prost para Keke Rosberg. Ou seja, a cada momento encosta Keke Rosberg. Dentro de pouco tempo ele já sai. Posição para tentar uma ultrapassagem. E desde que consiga a ultrapassagem, ele passará mesmo na frente a correr contra o programa para tirar aqueles 3 segundos e 29 que o separavam de próximo. Aí mais uma vez Pironi, Giacomelli, Cheever e Lauda. E que Lauda ainda não conseguiu uma aproximação maior. Estados, eu não sei se ele não conseguiu ou se ele não pretende. Raul, diga para nós, um piloto nessa posição, ele sabe que ele não vai conseguir ultrapassar os 3 de uma vez. Não seria uma prudência por parte do Lauda ficar ali atrás, aguardando, quem sabe, um enrosco entre os 3 da frente, que ele pode herdar uma posição num erro, num acidente que possa acontecer, e ele manter uma distância exatamente para evitar ser envolvido?
Talvez ele tenha mantido uma distância para conservar a temperatura do motor, porque se ele chegar muito perto, a temperatura é claro que vai subir, porque você andando no vácuo o tempo todo, não tem a mesma refrigeração, certo?
Raul Grande acompanhando conosco o Grande Prêmio de Detroit de Fórmula 1 de 1982, exclusivo da Rede Globo. Ele, Raul, que largava na 21ª posição, largou muito bem, mas acabou sendo tirado da prova por se envolver num acidente com Mauro Baldi. Ficou sem condições de participar da segunda largada. E acompanha conosco direto do Detroit a sétima etapa da Fórmula 1 em 1982. Eddie Cheever tentou colocar por dentro para tentar uma ultrapassagem em cima de Bruno Giacomelli. Fechou a porta. O Cheever continua na 5ª posição. Pironi já escapuliu um pouco, abriu uma boa vantagem.
O que começou a acontecer agora, o Giacomelli, em vez de tentar passar o Pironi, está começando a segurar o Cheever. O Pironi abriu já uma...
Você viu ali o terceiro Jacques Laffite. Ele deixou para frear depois, só que se aproximou demais do carro do Giacomelli. Forçou no freio, travou a roda dianteira e quase saiu. Com isso, o Lauda se aproximou. Aquilo que dizia o Raul, o Giacomelli diminuiu o seu próprio ritmo, o Cheever apertou e o Lauda encostou. E com isso o Pironi folga um pouco à frente. Já não tem o... tão colado no seu retrovisor. Já dá inclusive para buscar o melhor traçado. Ele já pode buscar um traçado que lhe permita um melhor desenvolvimento e não um traçado que não permita a ultrapassagem do carro que está atrás, que é a maior dificuldade do piloto.
Hélio de Angelis no box, algum problema?
A Lotus número 12 de Hélio de Angelis. A Lotus número 11 de Hélio de Angelis no box. De Angelis que na segunda largada.
Pelo jeito não vai voltar, já está fora do carro.
Na segunda largada e agora abandona definitivamente o Grande Prêmio de Detroit. Essa é a 19ª volta. Em primeiro, Alain Prost, em segundo, Keke Rosberg. Em quarto, Bruno Giacomelli. Em quinto, Eddie Cheever. Em sexto, Dick Lauda. Em sétimo, Jacques Laffite. Em oitavo, Derek Daly. Em nono, René Arnoux, que caiu da 7ª para a 9ª posição. Em décimo, Nigel Mansell, com a Lotus de número 12. Você viu a parada definitiva de Eliseu Salazar, o ABS de número 10. Ele bateu, rapidamente deixou o seu carro, aí está retirando o capacete. Também a balaclava está fora da prova, portanto, O chileno Eliseu Salazar, do ATS número 10. Menos um carro na prova. A essa altura apenas 16 carros dos 26 que largaram continuam na competição. E aí vai o líder da prova, Alan Prost. Mas só que tem apenas 4 segundos e 66 de vantagem para Keke Rosberg. Passando aí o Rosberg. Já encostou Keke Rosberg. Praticamente já não há diferença. Aí, apenas a diferença estabelecida antes da paralisação da prova. Os 3 segundos e 29. René Arnoux caiu para a 10ª posição. E o Keke Rosberg passa a atacar agora diretamente a Alan Prost na disputa pela primeira posição da prova. Uma luta muito importante, não só na prova, também na prova para a classificação do campeonato. O Prost é o líder, com 18 pontos, o Rosberg é o quarto. Veja aí o Rosberg em cima de Alan Prost, na curva mais baixa do circuito. Como disse o Raul Wesson, tomada a primeira por volta dos 60 km por hora. E aí a parte de maior velocidade do circuito. O circuito de uma média horária por volta dos 130 km por hora. E comparado a qualquer outra prova, é muito pouco a nível de Fórmula 1. Aí o Rosberg. Já não há diferença a nível de cronômetro. E a batida do Eliseu Salazar. Ele passou reto na curva com o pneu travado. Não adianta você virar a roda. Bateu, quebrou a suspensão dianteira direita e teve que abandonar a prova. Aí exatamente o momento do desastre da batida de Eliseu Salazar no ATS número 10. Vamos com os 2 primeiros colocados. Alan Prost e Keke Rosberg. Uma Renault e uma Williams.
São 2 carros completamente diferentes. Um é Renault, usando motor turbo e pneu Michelin, certo? E outro é o carro Williams, usando motor Ford e pneu Ligier.
E ali a posição perigosa em que ficou exatamente na saída do túnel o carro de Eliseu Salazar.
Esse é o problema dessa pista, que não tem os guias para levantar.
Exatamente por isso a prova foi paralisada quando do desastre de Roberto Guerreiro e Ricardo Patrese. O carro estava numa posição tão perigosa que o diretor de prova preferiu paralisar. Prost e Rosberg. Repare que não há nenhuma reta no circuito. Às vezes há a possibilidade de desenvolver um pouco mais o carro. Olha a tentativa de Rosberg. Alan Prost, ele deixou para apoiar a dianteira. Se aproximou, mas o seu traçado não foi bom, o Prost saiu mais forte da pista. E conseguiu determinar a vantagem.
Está um pouco longe para tentar ultrapassar.
Agora uma maior aproximação de Keke Rosberg. Ele não é um piloto que se conforma em ficar atrás.
Não, mas a posição dele é a posição mais, vamos dizer, confortável da prova. Ele seguindo o líder, sem pressão nenhuma do terceiro posto, quer dizer, ele só tem que se preocupar em seguir o Alan Prost e esperar a oportunidade para uma ultrapassagem.
Prost, Rosberg. Se o Prost tinha 3,29 de vantagem sobre o Rosberg, a essa altura podemos determinar que a diferença não é sequer de 4 segundos, deve andar aí por volta dos 3,80 a diferença real. Ou seja, o Rosberg, para vencer essa prova, para que você acompanhe melhor, ele tem que passar o Prost e abrir mais de 3,29 de vantagem. Mais uma vez na reta. 57 centésimos dessa diferença atual. Somada aos 3,29, dá exatamente 3,83. Vejam aí na freada de uma curva mais forte, mais acentuada, como o Rosberg consegue uma maior. O carro também é mais leve. O carro convencional é mais leve
permite ao Rosberg deixar para frear depois. E com isso ele consegue essa aproximação. Aí é onde ele vai tentar a ultrapassagem, pela segunda vez. Fecha a porta e sai mais forte da curva. E exatamente numa parte do circuito que favorece o turbo. Uma parte do carro pode ficar um pouco mais forte, mas 3,91 a diferença. Lembrando a você que ela é de 3,91 porque tem que ser somados os segundos das 6 primeiras voltas. Ó, aí a ultrapassagem, a tentativa de Keke Rosberg, botou por fora, ficou difícil. O Alan Prost diminuiu a velocidade porque o Keke não teria por onde passar. Ele diminuiu exatamente para evitar o acidente. Talvez está sendo uma manobra excessivamente arriscada do Rosberg. Se o Prost manter o ritmo do seu carro, o Rosberg não teria como voltar para a pista. Não, eu acho que, ao meu ver, o Prost teve algum problema. Diminuiu muito.
Vejam lá, vamos acompanhar o replay. Vejam bem. O Alan Prost,
você vê que na saída da curva o turbo não acelerou.
Na hora que ele chamou no motor, o motor não veio. Aí o Rosberg passou num ponto muito perigoso. Percebam bem, ele tinha um muro à sua frente. Se o Prost não lhe dá esse espaço, ele não vai voltar. E já abre uma boa vantagem Keke Rosberg em cima de Alan Prost. Queremos saber quando essa vantagem ultrapassará os 3,29.
Provavelmente o Alan Prost errou uma marcha.
Ou talvez tenha um problema no seu carro porque a vantagem é cada vez maior. Vejam bem como já abre Keke Rosberg em cima de Alan Prost. Vamos aguardar a passada à frente da reta dos boxes. Para marcar a diferença, vai se arrastando praticamente na pista. A velocidade de Alan Prost. 24ª volta de um total de 75. Keke Rosberg já é o líder da prova a essa altura. Número 6, do finlandês Keke Rosberg. Logo atrás, a Renault número 15 de Alan Prost. Vamos ver na reta dos toques a diferença real de um carro para o outro. Pela primeira largada, o Prost leva 3,29 de vantagem. Aí vai Keke Rosberg, passando sob a ponte, agora ele vai para o mergulho do túnel. A saída do túnel, uma curva à esquerda e depois a chicane de entrada da reta dos boxes. Aí Keke Rosberg está com muita vantagem para Alan Prost. Essa curva à esquerda. E aí vem a chicane. Vai completar mais uma volta Keke Rosberg. Vamos ver a diferença. Passou o Rosberg. Passou o Prost. 3 segundos e 81. Keke Rosberg é o novo líder da prova. Já tirou a diferença de 3,29. Agora despacho de direito. Keke Rosberg é o líder do Grande Prêmio de Detroit de Fórmula 1 de 1982. Eles já estão torcendo por um Brasil campeão.
Justamente deve ter um problema de câmbio. Você nota que nas curvas de baixo deve ter perdido uma primeira ou segunda marcha, porque deve ter que fazer as curvas de baixa velocidade de terceira.
E aí deixa o carro fora de posições. Aí no momento da ultrapassagem, ele tinha 42 centésimos de vantagem para Alan Prost. Essa diferença já está acima dos 3,80. Fala. Fala. Tô. Isso tudo que gravou, como é que vai?
Cheever passou o Giacomelli. Hã? Ok, quem está falando? Oh, garoto. Espera um pouquinho que eu vou marcar aqui. volta já dá uns 143 minutos, 2 horas e 20 e pouco. Fala. O que é? Não estou entendendo nada que você está falando. Fala um pouquinho mais longe.
30, 53 e 30, mais 1 hora e 7 minutos acaba. Alô? Mais 1 hora e 7 minutos, 1 hora e 5 minutos acaba por ele. O que é? Quem é? Não estou entendendo. Não dá para entender nada. Fala de novo. Eu prefiro fazer uma cerimônia, né? Claro. Olha, é o seguinte, vocês não preferem fazer uma coisa mais autêntica? Você está gravando aí, nós estamos chegando, que eu vou narrando aqui, e você faz um compacto aí, não é melhor? Eu tô... Não entendi. Abaixa aí, abaixa o Abaixa o microfone para falar comigo, senão eu não entendo. Está saturado demais, eu não chego a falar, eu não entendo nada. Alô, Rio, fala aí. Alô, Rio. Quem é? Pô, agora tá baixo demais. Não tô ouvindo, não. Hã? Tá bonita a corrida, hein? Pegado esse problema aí. Tá bonita a corrida na rua. Oi? Agora eu tô ouvindo. Fazer o quê? Ih! Bateu aí. Ih! Foi o Otto e o Giacomelli, né? Ok, vou começar a marcar aqui, né? Só não sei. O Otto e o Giacomelli ficou. Aí. Quebrou tudo. A roda quebrou antes de ele bater. Quebrou antes de ele bater, exatamente. Não foi a roda onde bateu o Otto.
and dropped right back out of contention. Looks as though he is now effectively out of the race. And once again, we have the story of the Renaults having shown so much promise only to fail in the race. And there is the order, and we're looking at the battle for second position with Didier Pironi in the Ferrari, followed by Eddie Cheever in third place. Niki Lauda is fourth. John Watson right behind them in fifth position. And the gap between Keke Rosberg, the leader, and Pironi in second place is just under 21 seconds. So Keke Rosberg really only has to keep going, although there's a long way in the race still to go in order to win. They go past Salazar's broken motor car with Cheever third, Lauda fourth, Watson fifth.
An amazing turnaround for McLaren's in this race, because they really had a nightmare. It was Watson having a go at Lauda, and he's through. Watson just came out. Lauda obviously let him through there. That was a clear case of that. He probably feels that Watson, well, he can see that Watson's going very well indeed. He probably feels that he's had a long enough shot to doing something about it, so the least he can do is let his teammate have a crack at it. I suspect they may well be running different compounds of tyre. This has happened in the past in Belgium when John Watson won. Lauda was well ahead of him and then slowed down. McLaren's like to take a double punt on the tyres, and as a result of that they're leading the Constructors' Championship. But they had a nightmare practice. They were both in double figures. Watson was 17th on the grid, but look at him now. He's really storming.
And he's really storming and taking Cheever through into third position. From 13th place goes John Watson, and by the way, behind this lot in sixth position is Jacques Laffite in the second of the two Talbots. So Pironi, and now Watson's going through to second position. Unbelievable, but he's done it.
What an amazing burst of driving. He's done on one lap, overtaken three cars when everybody else has spent the whole race failing to overtake anybody. Absolutely marvellous stuff by Watson, but it does underline the fact, look at the way he's just streaking away. I think you can say that that was fine teamwork and fine driving by Lauda to let Watson through. He realised and worked out that Watson was in fitter condition with the car and ready to have a go. Here we're going to see it again. This is how Watson got past Cheever. He came out of that previous corner well. He had a little bit of extra momentum. He gets inside. Cheever sees there's no room. He squeezes through the tiniest gap. Terrific stuff. And then he just allows his momentum and adrenaline to carry him right past the Ferrari. I think we're going straight on here because he squeezes inside him at the very next corner. Fantastic driving.
Well, it seems John Watson's really got the bit between his teeth, and with a bit of luck we might just see a replay of the Belgium Grand Prix with Watson slowly but surely hauling in Keke Rosberg. In the meantime, Prost has pulled into the pits and he's out of the points altogether. I'll cross you back to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Watson, number 7 there, is now second overall to Keke Rosberg, and this is taking both parts into account, and is leading the World Championship. Very important indeed. So, on lap 28, and we don't know, frankly, how long the race is going to run. We expect it to run 64 laps altogether, taking into account the first 6 laps. It is Keke Rosberg leading, John Watson in second place, Didier Pironi in the Ferrari there, the leader of these cars, in third position, Eddie Cheever in fourth place, Niki Lauda in 8th position, in 5th position, and in 6th position Jacques Laffite is coming up through the field. So the work that the Talbot, there's Laffite in the background, the work that the Talbot people have done on the cars since Monaco, when they were an abysmal failure, has been enormously successful, with Cheever driving the race of his life in 3rd position and holding Pironi and keeping ahead of Niki Lauda, is driving superbly, and Jacques Laffite going very, very well in the second of the new Talbots. Now, Laffite, Cheever challenging in the tunnel, is he? We've never seen anybody try and pass in the tunnel. It's very wide, notably wider than the one at Monaco. Pironi, third. John Watson, it's quite incredible, this. I said earlier on that John Watson was in 13th place, and he was. He has climbed up 11 places through the field on this tortuous, extremely twisty and very bumpy in parts, because that's one of the driver's complaints here at Detroit. And that's why John Watson, the fastest lap, 1 minute 51 seconds, and that is a speed of 80.6 miles an hour. much slower than we expected it to be, because the Renault computer before this race, having looked at the course, said that the lap time, that speed would be about 85 miles an hour. Well, we're having to take a check on whether Watson is in fact second overall, because he was 13 seconds behind Prost on the first leg. But we'll see, we'll see. Meantime, Pironi, Cheever, Lauda, Giacomelli out of the race, of course, De Cesaris out of the race, Salazar out of the race, and although... And there's Lauda taking Cheever. Lauda goes through, moves up a place. Eddie Cheever lost his previous place on that corner. So now Niki Lauda is starting his charge, and there is definite indication there that the McLaren car is absolutely right for this circuit. Watson has charged through from 13th to 2nd. Niki Lauda, a very, very seasoned campaigner, is now up into 4th position.
Yes, I think Lauda's making a big push now, Murray. He seems to have suddenly taken a little bit more of an edge to his driving, just looks a little bit keener, a little bit jumpier in the cockpit, and that's probably the stimulus of seeing his teammate John Watson just rocket through past that group once he got his momentum going, and then disappear so fast that he went straight out of our camera shot. We haven't seen him since. We don't know how far ahead he is at the moment and how fast he's gone away from them.
Well, I guess the producer will see Keke Rosberg on one of his monitors, and this is the battle in the race, and we reckon with 29 laps completed, plus 6, that makes 35. There's about another 29 laps to go, about as many laps to go as have gone already, with Giacomelli's car parked there, with Keke Rosberg leading by at least 20 seconds, with John Watson in 2nd position. This is the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Didier Pironi in the V6 turbocharged Ferrari 3rd.
Find a way past this mobile chicane, because the Ferrari has been proving itself to be faster on the straight stretches, although he has certainly been slow around the braking areas. And there you can see how Niki Lauda really closes up on, tucking himself in behind the rear wing of Didi.
Keeps his line and moves up a place. And Mike, there is Lauda past Pironi. And now Cheever's having a go at Pironi. This really is a race of changes all the way round. But in the front still is Keke Rosberg, but John Watson, you can't see it, we can. John Watson is closing up on Keke Rosberg, having flown through the field from that lowly position, starting on the grid in 17th place and nearly losing it. Niki Lauda holds it and he goes into the Atwater tunnel.
Remembering, of course, that for Watson, he hasn't just got to catch Rosberg and then pass him. He then has to build a very considerable lead on Rosberg, because he had a large deficit from the first heat of something like 15 seconds or something like that. So he needs to build a big lead to get away.
Yes, Rosberg has got to be some 13.2 seconds, we calculate, behind Watson, if Watson were to be in the lead overall. But Watson's still got to catch him, never mind get past him, never mind build up a 13-second cushion ahead of him. And Watson is the fastest man on the circuit, look, 1 minute 51.25, a speed of just under 81 miles an hour, which when you see this Detroit circuit as they go past Giacomelli's broken car seems almost unbelievable. It is so twisty. Lauda, Pironi, Cheever, 3rd, 4th and 5th, and Laffite in 6th place.
And there goes Cheever squeezing through. Excellent manoeuvre. He did it where Rosberg was trying to do it to Prost, but they're not getting away from Pironi with anything like the alacrity that John Watson showed. And there's Watson in the lead of the race. We didn't see him pass it, but that's Rosberg behind him, so Watson has just taken the lead on the road. But as far as the overall race is concerned, he's still got something like 13 seconds to go to pull away. But how is he streaking away? And it must be that he's running different tyres to Lauda, and therefore probably different to a lot of other. Here we see it again. He's just pulling out of the slipstream into the out-braking position, taking the inside line for the corner, and there goes Keke Rosberg's immediate lead, but not his overall lead.
37 accumulated laps, including the 6 of the first part completed.
If Watson can go on and win this race, he's certainly going to consolidate his World Championship lead. I'll return you back to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Two-part race. Rosberg is plus 15 seconds on him, or thereabouts, from the first half of the race. So he's got, you see there in the caption, Rosberg is still ahead. In fact, Pironi is still in second place, according to that.
These captions really do more harm than good. They are very misleading because the race is changing so much. But there is confirmation of the fact that John Watson, whilst we were concentrating on the battle between Pironi and Cheever and Lauda, has been closing up all the time on Keke Rosberg, and now leads on lap 31 in this second part, lap 37 overall. And as James says, he's just got to pull away, and there's little doubt that he's doing that. Totally rejuvenated John Watson in the last couple of years. He won the Prix this year, he won the Belgian Grand Prix this year, and it looks as though he's now on his way to...
It looks very much to me as if Rosberg's tyres are going off. It would appear that Watson very wisely before the race has chosen to start with a harder compound tyre, and of course this is allowing him now to ask more of the car and the tyre later on in the race, and they're standing up doing it very well. Rosberg, on the other hand, along with Lauda, looks like they may have started with a slightly softer compound and are paying the penalty now. I think that Watson has got the capability of consolidating his lead to make up the deficit that he had in the first heat. And of course, if he can do this, he'll win the race overall. And as I said before, well and truly consolidate his position in the World Championship. I return you now to Murray Walker and James Hunt at Detroit.
Well, one of the things that Watson has got, of course, is experience. More of it than anybody in this race, even including Niki Lauda, because this is his 128th Grand Prix, of which he has won 3. 2 pole positions, 4 second places, 6 thirds, and John Watson's driven for the Surtees team, for Brabham, for Penske and for McLaren. And as I say, with this new MP4 John Barnard designed chassis and the leadership of Ron Dennis, the Marlboro team and the McLaren team have been absolutely rejuvenated. It's come together as a perfect team.
Well, that wide aerial shot that we just had showing the distance on the road between Watson and Rosberg is probably the last shot that we'll get. Oh, we might get a couple more when we can still see Rosberg in the background if we're looking at Watson, but it looks to me now that it's plain sailing for John Watson. All he has to do is keep himself together, keep his car together, hope that the car, in all other respects, keeps itself together, and it looks like he's heading for his second Grand Prix win of the season and the lead, and quite comfortable lead of the World Championship.
Yes, well, while you've been talking, James, I've been doing some calculations, and John Watson has got to keep at it, because actually, remembering the fact that he had a very bad first part, he has actually got to get 23 seconds ahead of Rosberg to win the race overall. Now, he's not anything like 23 seconds ahead of him at the moment, but as I said, there were then 50 minutes more to go. There's, say, 45 minutes more to go now, which means to say that John Watson has actually got plenty of time to ease out and extend his lead over Keke Rosberg. But by the same token, he's got plenty of time to make mistakes and for something to go wrong with the car.
Just in my head, that's about getting on for 25 laps to go, and he's already must have got 7 or 8 seconds on it, so he's looking at, well, within a second a lap, something like 2/3 of a second a lap, and looking at it now just with the naked eye, it seems to me that he's pulling away at much more than a second a lap, so he's well on schedule. It's just a question if he can keep it going. I think Rosberg may be struggling with his tyres a little bit, have slowed down, struggling for grip, and it's of some interest to me. We can't see from our commentary position enough of any of the circuit, and therefore we can't see if Rosberg is actually falling back towards Lauda.
Well, overall, the computer says that Rosberg is leading, Lauda is second. This is not just this part of the race, it's both parts of the race. Rosberg leads, Lauda second, And Watson, who is leading this part, is third overall, now 18 seconds behind Rosberg. So as James says, he is pulling away from Rosberg in this part and closing up on Rosberg on aggregate, with Cheever in 4th place overall, Pironi in 5th place overall, and Laffite in 6th place overall.
Yes, that last computer result was 2 or 3 laps old. I suspect it's already changed quite dramatically, because I would think Watson must now be in 2nd place and must also have reduced that gap a bit further to Rosberg. But I'd be quite like to see, as calculations are pretty difficult for us, as we can't sit up here and click watches as the cars go past the start-finish line to get gaps. It's proving a bit of a handicap for us, but let's hope we get the computers to do all that work for us and give us an update in a minute.
Well, John's still driving very hard indeed. You can see by the positioning of the car on the corners that he's really giving it plenty of welly, so he's getting signals from his pit, which is indicating to him his overall position, no doubt. And that's Lauda. That's Niki Lauda. Niki Lauda stopped. Well, this race is having drama after drama, a late start, but now the double world champion of 1975 and 1977 is out of the Detroit Grand Prix, which means to say that John Watson leads this part of the race. In 2nd position is Keke Rosberg. In 3rd position was Niki Lauda, but now up into 3rd place comes Eddie Cheever. Up into 4th place comes Didier Pironi. In 5th position it is Jacques Laffite, and in 6th position it is Derek Daly, followed in 7th place by Nigel Mansell. In 8th position is Jochen Maas. In 9th position is René Arnoux. In 10th position is Mark Surer. In 11th position is Michele Alboreto. And in 12th place is Brian Hinton, followed by the last runner, and there goes Pironi off. Well, tyres are starting to go, I suspect.
Yes, well, possibly human exhaustion as well. Now, a combination of the two. And there is Rosberg with Cheever right behind him. Pironi went wide at the corner there, made a big mistake, lost a bit of time, so he's lost touch. But Cheever is now climbing all over the back of Rosberg's car and looks favourite to get past him as well. But he, again, will have to make up a fair few seconds on top of getting past Rosberg in order to deprive him of 2nd place.
And if tyres are the key, as they may well be, it looks as though the Michelin combination is the right one to have, and Cheever goes through into 2nd position as Niki Lauda walks back, and Rosberg dropping right back. He's obviously in trouble.
Yes, Rosberg must have some trouble. It looks mechanical rather than tyres, because he's going too slowly down the straight. So Rosberg, obviously in bother, he will now be nursing his car to the finish, but can't be considered in serious contention. And that now looks as if the race is well tied up for John Watson, because his opposition, as well as not being able to have any answer to his turn of speed, have also fallen by the wayside, and it looks very much as if the race is handed up as much on a plate as they ever are, because whatever happens, you still have to get the car to the line and keep the thing going and running. And Watson's still got a fair old distance of that to do. He's got possibly 35 minutes still to go, and that's a long time when you're out there on your own in front.
Yes, and Charger Cheever is on his way in 2nd place. There is the 3rd place man, Rosberg, but I guess he's going to have trouble in maintaining that position, because he has had to allow Watson to close right up on him. Then he had to allow Cheever to pass him. And Keke Rosberg, being the determined young man that he is, would not have done that if he had not had to do it. So Rosberg down to 3rd place as we look at the 2nd place man, Eddie Cheever. And we wait to see now who is coming through in 4th position, but we don't get the chance. Now, to win overall, John Watson has got to stay 12.5 seconds at least in front of Eddie Cheever. This race is a constantly moving quicksand of calculations to take into account who did what in the first part of the race, the first 6-lap part, which could well prove to be crucial, which will prove to be crucial. And that caption, you see, is already out of date, long out of date, because Watson leads and Rosberg is down to 3rd, and that must be Arnoux.
Yes, that's Arnoux in the pits. He's having a tyre change amongst other things. Seems to be plenty of work going on all around him. Significantly on that last caption courtesy of the computer, though, we did see that Watson was already in front of Eddie Cheever by some 4 seconds. And if that is correct, because in a melee of calculations such as this, you trust nobody, not even the computer, because that's only as good as what it's fed in terms of information. So we'll have to work it all out at the end. But it looks, according to that, if Watson is now in a comfortable lead with Rosberg obviously going backwards and out of the way.
As John Watson closes up on Marc Sure's arrows, the Swiss driver, who is still recovering from the 2 broken ankles that he had in South Africa at the beginning of the year. There is the Swiss driver, Sure, in the arrows. Remember, Mauro Baldi went out in the first part, and Sure is in 9th position in this part of the race. So Watson is soon going to have lapped everybody up to 8th place, because Marc Sure is a polite young man and is not given to getting in people's way if he can get out of it. And I have little doubt that he will let John Watson through, and he does so. That's the first time that we've seen somebody pass someone else in the tunnel. And John Watson has now lapped everybody up to 8th position. And overall, the positions are still, or were on the last lap, that Rosberg was leading by 4 seconds from Watson, with Cheever 3rd and Laffite 4th. But there is no doubt in my mind that now Watson is leading overall, and on lap 37 in this second part, it is 1st John Watson, 2nd Eddie Cheever, 3rd Keke Rosberg, 4th Jacques Laffite, 5th Didier Pironi, and the really significant thing, which is confirmed for once by the caption, is that the 2 Talbots are not only in the first 6 places, but in the first 4 places, with Cheever 3rd and Laffite 4th.
Watson, you'll see now, is also pulling away from Cheever pretty quickly. So Watson is really home and dry, bar any incident. Great shame. This race was very, very exciting for a while, but it all split up all of a sudden. And as everything emerged, Watson now has the race truly sewn up, unless, of course, something goes wrong for him.
Yes, he is leading by 3 seconds overall, taking both parts of the race into account. John Watson. Converted Coast Guard cottage, been driving for 18 years to achieve those 3 Formula One Grand Prix victories, and last year he really came good again with the new MP4 McLaren, and up he comes again, going straight through the field, and the car that he's taking there is Jacques Laffite. Chico Serra, my apologies, that's Chico Serra's car, the Brazilian in the Fittipaldi car, who was lucky to get a run in this race because he didn't get going in the first part properly, and that break after the first 6 laps when the race was stopped has enabled Chico Serra to get back into the contention again.
It's the most extraordinary thing, having watched this race and well, all season basically, that Watson has struggled so badly in qualifying. The Belgian Grand Prix, he won in a very similar situation, of whether certainly there it was very much a victory for tyres. He chose a harder compound than either Lauda, his teammate, or most of the other runners, and he struggled all through the first half of the race, just maintaining a fairly lowly grid position. And as the tyre pattern and situation, the state of the track changed, Watson suddenly came alive. And from half distance onwards, he was storming through the field, taking a long time to overtake. And you remember, he just managed to force a mistake out of Rosberg, who was struggling on worn-out tyres and with dodgy rear brakes. Right at the end of the race, he forced him into a little error under pressure and was able to nip through and win. It was a very late judgment, but Watson will be examining. If he's going to win the World Championship, he's going to have to examine ways to get that McLaren round faster in qualifying. It's not a problem peculiar to him, because he's never been a lot slower than Niki Lauda in qualifying. Lauda has, as it would be expected, been a little bit quicker generally, but for instance here and also at Monte Carlo, neither driver was. And there is one of the Lotuses.
Nigel Mansell getting out of his obviously broken Lotus, and now on lap 40 of this second part, lap 46 overall, with John Watson in the lead in the second part. He is also in the lead overall. Eddie Cheever, who is in second place in this part, is also second overall. Down to third position overall has gone Rosberg, and he must slip lower still. And Jacques Laffite is in fourth place overall, as he is in fourth place in this second part. And Didier Pironi is in a similar situation. Fifth overall and fifth in this second part. So the much longer distance that they have run in this second part than they did in the first part. As we look at Jochen Maas and Chico Serra. Jochen Maas, the German, in the march. Chico Serra. There's Eddie Cheever in second place. The longer distance that they've run in this second part is now more than counterbalancing the first part, and there is 11.720 seconds between John Watson and Eddie Cheever in this second part. And this second part, now they are on lap 40, coming up to the end of it, which means 46 laps overall, taking the first part into account, in what we expect to be a 64-lap race. So there's, what, 18 laps to go, if my mental arithmetic is right. John Watson leading. Thousands of Americans who have turned out in Motown, Motor City, Detroit, had their patience sorely tested with all the aggro that happened in practice, and there are Maas and Chico Serra. They had their patience even further tested, Mark Surer going through with the delayed start. But what they came to see has been more than fulfilled. There are now 33 minutes to go. 33 minutes to go in this race, and John Watson taking that corner very wide indeed, but cutting in safely, has therefore got to keep up the pace, because he's not all that much ahead of Eddie Cheever on aggregate. There is Cheever. Was in sixth place in the first part, and John Watson was well behind him. Those are the positions after 46 laps, and as you see, John Watson's only leading Cheever by 3 seconds, because 46 laps is the full part.
No, that's the overall position. He's in fact 14 seconds in front, because he's pulled away so fast. It's confused everybody.
Well, it certainly had me going there. John Watson. Now let's look down the lap chart and give you the positions on lap 40 in this second part, with John Watson leading in the McLaren Ford V8 powered, Eddie Cheever second in the Talbot Matra V12 powered. In third position, it's still Rosberg who is holding on, although we haven't seen much of him. In fourth position, it is Jacques Laffite. Rosberg, of course, in the Williams. Jacques Laffite in the second of the two Talbots, which are therefore second and fourth. In fifth position, in the Ferrari, is Didier Pironi. In sixth place, in the second of the two Williams cars, it is Derek Daly. And in seventh position, it is Jochen Maas. So both the Williams are in the first, in the top 6 places. Tell a lot better than I can, James, looking at John Watson, how hard he is driving. How hard would you say he is driving?
Well, we haven't been following him around that closely recently, but I would say he's driving steadily. He's still giving the pressure on that, and that is Jacques Laffite with a bent nose cone. We don't know how it's achieved, but the front wings do very little on the cars these days, so that may not be hurting his aerodynamics too much. He seems to be scrapping it in with the others there, so he's trying to fight his way past Keke Rosberg, and has got the Ferrari there. In fact, there's quite a little battle going on there. But Watson has now eased up a little bit. He seems to be going a little bit harder right now than he needs to be, but I think he's so comfortable, and the car is running so well that he's just sort of keeping going. he's within himself, but he hasn't specifically slowed up. And that's probably quite a wise thing to do, because out there in a situation like that, drivers know only too well, or experienced ones do, what sort of confusion can go on in the pits at times like that. And Laffite has got pie, and he's passed Rosberg, so now he's got to build that lead on Rosberg to catch what the deficit that he had in the first race in order to take it into third place.
I suspect that Jacques Laffite stuffed the nose of his Talbot into the gearbox of Keke Rosberg's Williams, trying to get past him. Anyway, he's succeeded now. So we have Talbot's second and third, which is something we certainly didn't think would happen for some time when we watched the Monaco Grand Prix, when they were in such disastrous disarray. And it says a heck of a lot for Jean-Pierre Jacques. And Pironi goes past. Rosberg is dropping back now. Pironi then through up into fourth position, having been second at one part of the race. So with Rosberg now in fifth position, and in sixth position behind him, Derek Daly. Take no notice of the count. John Watson is certainly leading. Cheever is certainly second. Jacques Laffite is now third. Up into fourth position has come Pironi, as we look at Jacques Laffite in his very bent Talbot. There's Pironi behind him in fourth position. Then Keke Rosberg in fifth place, grimly holding on because he's still in the running for 2 World Championship points. And Derek Daly coming up in the second of the 2 Williams cars to hopefully get 1 World Championship point. And place 1, that's one of the McLaren, place 1 plus 18 points. That is the signal to John Watson with, we reckon, some 25 laps to go. Will be the third line of the equation.
And at this point in time, we have to leave the Detroit Grand Prix, but there is the placings as they are. Watson, Cheever, Laffite, Pironi and Rosberg. We will be returning soon, immediately after Steve Liebman with the National News Today and the latest news. So right after that, we'll be back with the Detroit Grand Prix with John Watson leading at the present time from Cheever and Laffite.
As you now get a good look at downtown Detroit, and there he is, the 36-year-old driver from Northern Ireland, driving for Team McLaren, the Ford-powered McLaren car. He has had 1 win earlier this season in the Grand Prix of Belgium and a second in Brazil. And if he wins this race, he will easily take the lead in the overall season-long battle for the championship. He will have 26 points. In second place will be Pironi if he stays where he is, 19. They tell him he is 28 seconds ahead of Eddie Cheever. That's overall. He's actually more than that on the race course. But the important thing is, how many seconds overall? Well, he has a 28-second lead. So, Jackie Stewart's been watching all this. What's your comment?
Well, he's also got 18 minutes left in the race. Because this is going to be called a 2-hour race, he's got 18 minutes left. So therefore, the pit want him to know that. If he has to conserve the car, if he has to take it a little bit easy, he knows that there's only 18 minutes left. Unquestionably, John Watson will be getting tired now. Physically, it's an extraordinarily tiring experience to drive a car. Now, here's Eddie Cheever, the young American, driving very forcibly indeed. A remarkable performance in front of his own home crowd in second position.
That's right, and the best he has ever finished in his Grand Prix career is third. That came in the Grand Prix of Belgium not long ago in this year of 1982. Chris Economaki has Nicky Lauda in the pits. Chris?
Nicky, you look like a race fan at this point of the day. Glad you're rooting for John. He's doing a beautiful job.
I tried to outbrake Rosberg down there, and he cut the corner. You know, he cut the line. It was really my fault because I shouldn't have tried it down there. So I jumped over him, took airborne.
Too bad. You're rooting for John Watson, I'm sure, huh?
I hope he wins.
Better luck next time, Nicky.
Thank you.
Okay, Nicky, pretty noisy down here.
Former world champion Nicky Lauda. Yes, Jackie?
A very honest declaration from a man of enormous experience. He therefore said that Keke Rosberg, he felt, made a slight mistake, but it was his fault that he had allowed himself to be put into a set of circumstances where he could be endangered by Rosberg putting him out of the race. That's a very mature way to look at it. It's not a question of saying somebody else was at fault. He knew himself he shouldn't have been there at that moment. Nicky Lauda, a wise man.
the great champion normally react that way, whether it's Bill Shoemaker in horse racing, or Nicky Lauda in motor racing, Jack Nicholson golf, whoever it might be. There is the leader, John Watson. Ironic and interesting that it was just yesterday he was involved in an incident during practice in the rain here. It would have been possible he might not even have been able to participate, but there he is leading, going through the tunnel as we come to you live. But this was yesterday. John Watson in the red and white car. Watch him, car number 7, coming up behind Arnoux.
Watch what happens here. He just gets shot off the front end there, and the front wheel you can see is out of line. The front wing also out of line. He felt that he was sure going inside the car there, probably been driven by Jacques Laffite, was it? And then he went up inside trying to get under braking. He thought he had made it, and look what happens. He was a little tentative there at that point, and right there at that moment, he of course strikes the barrier on the left-hand side of the racetrack and also damages himself. And John
Wait a minute, this is live. That was on... Oh, no. All right, hold it. Faked ourselves out on this one. Suddenly we cut to this tight shot. That is still from yesterday's incident.
Well, of course, with only a day to go, John Watson was more than just a little bit annoyed. We're now looking at him right now live here in Detroit, and John Watson is very much still in the motor race, still powering his 4-powered McLaren around this 2.5-mile racetrack. Remember, this is a normally aspirated engine, 3-liter capacity, 3,000 cc's, as he drives around here with about 480 brake horsepower coming to these rear wheels.
John Watson with a 27-second overall lead over Eddie Cheever. Didier Pironi is 3rd, Keke Rosberg is still 4th, Jacques Laffite is 5th. We'll be back.
Sure.
Nearing the closing laps of the Detroit Grand Prix. Lap 54 completed of a schedule 75, but it will not be ended according to the laps. The rule is the lap numbers or 2 hours in Grand Prix racing, whichever shall come first, and it's going to be the 2 hours. So we have about 12 minutes of racing left here as John Watson continues to lead, now by 26 seconds over Eddie Cheever. May be slowing it down just a little bit. Didier Pironi is 3rd, and there he shows by 27 seconds. Yep. And here is Eddie Cheever in 2nd place, apparently headed for the finest finish of his career and in his own country, the United States. He's spent very little time here, lived most of his life in Europe, still an American citizen. He's 25 years old, makes his home in Monte Carlo, spends a lot of time in Italy, but drives for the French team of Talbot, that's the name of the car, and Ligier, that's Guy Ligier, a former Grand Prix and endurance driver who runs the team. Remember when Guy Ligier first brought his own car to Le Mans back in the early 60s when we first started going there. But Eddie Cheever is one of the big stories. You'll be reading about him in the papers and the magazines next week. Jackie talked to him.
Living in Italy, being an American, how close is America to you in respect to representing your country or flying your flag in the internationalism that Grand Prix racing is surrounded by?
Very much so. I'm proud to be an American, and I would never change my nationality any way, for any reason. But I cannot see myself living in America for a long time. I think after when I stop racing, I do something else. I would like to move to America, but for the moment, I am an American living abroad. But I'm a proud American living abroad.
A very well put statement by Eddie Cheever in 2nd place in this Detroit Grand Prix. So one day he'll probably return home. And of course, the main reason, as I think he indicated earlier in an interview, that he's saying in Europe is to be a Formula One racer, and that's where it is for the most part. Cheever flashing through the picture. Watson 1st then, Cheever 2nd, Pironi 3rd, Rosberg 4th, Jacques Laffite 5th in the overall standings. We're going to be coming back for the finish of this race, of course. Right now we're going to be returning very briefly to our New York studio. ABC colleague Jack Whitaker has been holding forth there, as you know, all afternoon in the post operation, as we call it. So let's go to Jack again right now. Okay, Jack.
And now we're back live with the Detroit Grand Prix, where John Watson is still leading, the 36-year-old driver, from Eddie Cheever, then Jacques Laffite, Didier Pironi, and Keke Rosberg having all sorts of problems. Lap 56, there's around about 20 laps still to go, and Watson opening up a very handsome lead at this particular time. Back now to commentators, James Hunt, Murray Walker.
And there he has remained. So 3 different leaders. I'm not going to say anything else about leaders because it is tempting fate, except to say that John Watson is certainly looking secure at the moment.
Just stroking it round very neatly now. He's not using all the road. He's yeah, he still seems to be going away from Eddie Cheever. So Watson is operating in the happy position of having got his car absolutely right, made a very good tyre choice, obviously, and has a considerable advantage over his rivals. Very pleasant position to be in. However, he had to work extremely hard for it with all that overtaking because he qualified himself into a terrible situation, which, of course, is just as well for us viewers at home because we can enjoy the race a lot more. It would have been no fun at all if Watson started off the pole and just disappeared into the dim and distant on his own.
Unseen by worldwide of sport viewers, wide world of sport viewers in Australia, but seen by us, Didier Pironi has got ahead of Jacques Laffite and is back in 3rd position. So I would imagine that that crumpled nose cone of Laffite's Talbot, although it would have less effect on a twisty circuit like this, where downforce matters less than handling, has started to affect him, and Jacques Laffite is down to 4th position in the second of the Talbots, Pironi in 3rd position in the Ferrari, and Pironi, who won at San Marino, who was 2nd at Monaco, is now up into 3rd position in this Detroit Grand Prix. He's actually in 3rd position overall in the World Championship too, only 1 point behind John Watson when this race began. And now John Watson, if he keeps going, will be leading the World Championship after 7 rounds for the first time in his long career. And Cheever, who is the only American in this American race, is definitely about to get his best result. He's now some 40 seconds behind John Watson. And on lap 48 of the second part, lap 56 overall, in the second part, John Watson leads Cheever. Pironi is 3rd, Laffite is 4th. Daly has moved up into 5th position in the Williams, ahead of his teammate Rosberg, who is in 6th place. So both the Saudi Williams cars are still in the top 6 places. And I don't think that Jochen Maas, who is in 7th place, is in fact going to be able to catch Rosberg, provided the Finn, Keke Rosberg, Finnish driver, can just keep going. That caption has now been outdated by what I have just said to you. And you can see that Derek Daly has gained 13 seconds on his teammate since it was posted. John Watson. Giacomelli's car with the bent suspension on the near side front. Nigel Mansell's car there. Yeah. And it's just a case of keeping up the rhythm. And driving in any Grand Prix, and particularly one on a circuit like this, is very much a case of building up and then maintaining a rhythm. Place 1, plus there's Teddy Mayer on the right, 14 minutes to go, 28 seconds ahead, so Watson is increasing his lead. And the McLaren team is certainly having a marvellous season, because Niki Lauda won at Long Beach, John Watson won the Belgian Grand Prix, and so therefore they're on their way to their 3rd victory in 7 Grand Prix this year.
If they are in fact already leading the Constructors' Championship by dint of the fact that their drivers have spread their results so well, so this is a marvellous performance by McLaren as a whole, and a great tribute to Ron Dennis and his section of the team that came in to form a new company just 18 months ago and build the MP4 car. They've revitalised the fortunes of McLaren, which really was a team in disarray before. It had been going downhill ever since the mid-70s. They swung along on the crest for a while, but the team really fell apart, and it was a new management structure and everything, and it's really worked out. And as I say, all credit to Ron Dennis and his men for putting things together, redoing the engineering side of the company, and the results are now showing.
And not very long to go now. On lap 50 of this second part, on lap 56 overall, in what, I say again, we expect to be a 64-lap race to make up the full 2 hours. 1 hour, 48 minutes and 20 seconds was the time that we expected the race to run before the checkered flag was held out in this second part to make up the full 2 hours, because the first part only ran just over 11 minutes before the coming together of Patrese, Brabham and Guerrero's ensign, having been interfered with, as it were, by Elio De Angelis's Lotus 91, brought the first part of the race to a close on the second lap after 6 full laps had been completed. John Watson leading, number 7. The chassis of this car, made in America, made by the Hercules Corporation. And Jacques Laffite is dropping down through the field because Derek Daly is now up into 4th position. We've just seen him go by. And on lap 50, just coming to the end of it, there's the leader, John Watson. Eddie Cheever is still 2nd. Pironi is still 3rd. But up to 4th position has gone Derek Daly. In 5th position it is Jacques Laffite, and in 6th position it is Keke Rosberg. There is the 2nd place man, Eddie Cheever. Over the tunnel, the Atwater tunnel. Now 2 courses can say that they have a tunnel. It is no longer a unique distinction for the Monaco circuit. And he's being followed by Brian Hinton, is Eddie Cheever. Brian Hinton, who looks as though he's going to go the full race distance and is in 9th place. Superhen, the ex-Formula 2 champion of 1982, European Formula 2 champion in the Tolman. And he didn't get a place in the Tolman team when it went Formula 1. Well, he did. He got it last year, but he only got 1 drive, and that was when he qualified for Italy right at the end of the season at Monza. His contract was not renewed this year. His place was taken in the Tolman team by Teo Fabi, and now he's in the Tyrrell team and getting a Grand Prix finish. And that's Eddie Cheever pulling away. So Talbot have got a lot to encourage them. They've kept at it. Jean-Pierre Jarier, the ex-Renault driver who won 2 Grand Prix in his career, and he won the French Grand Prix at Dijon, and he won the Austrian Grand Prix at Zeltweg, then crashed very badly in the Canadian Grand Prix the year before last, and when he came back he tried to drive for Talbot, but had to opt to drive.
Daqui a pouco vai embora, hein? Acabando isso. Faltam 10 minutos, menos de 10. Alô, Ávila. Deixa eu ver o tempo que falta. Peraí, deixa eu checar o tempo que falta aqui. 8 minutos faltam. Vamos lá? Vamos lá? Ok, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bem, amigos da Rede Globo, você vai acompanhar agora os momentos finais deste confuso Grande Prêmio de Detroit de Fórmula 1 de 1982. Aí está o líder da prova, John Watson, o vencedor da Bélgica, que a 8 minutos do final da corrida lidera com 25 segundos de vantagem para Ed Cheever, que está na 2ª posição. O terceiro é Didier Pironi, 34 segundos atrás. O quarto é Keke Rosberg, 1 minuto e 11 segundos atrás. O quinto, Derek Daly, 1 minuto e 16 segundos atrás. E o sexto, Jacques Laffite, 1 minuto e 34 segundos atrás. Chico Serra está na 10ª posição, 3 voltas atrás do líder. 7 minutos e meio para o final da prova. De um grande prêmio muito confuso, que começou com o Alain Prost na ponta, mas logo na 6ª volta, um desastre entre Ricardo Patrese e Roberto Guerreiro interrompeu a prova por mais de 1 hora. Na nova largada, foram mantidas as posições. Rosberg, por exemplo, estava 3 segundos e 29 atrás de Alain Prost. E John Watson, que agora é o líder da competição, estava 26 segundos e 52 centésimos atrás do primeiro colocado. E ele já está 25 segundos à frente do que está na segunda posição. Uma corrida maravilhosa de John Watson até essa altura. Como maravilhosa foi a corrida de Rosberg, até que ele assumiu a ponta e começou a ter problemas com o seu carro. Alain Prost está fora da competição nessa altura. E aí nós vamos nas últimas voltas com John Watson, num grande prêmio muito confuso, em função dos problemas existentes nesse circuito de pista muito estreita e sem área de escape. Aí você vê a finalização do box da McLaren. A primeira posição para John Watson, 25 segundos à frente no segundo e a 6 minutos do final da prova. A volta de número 60. Estavam previstas 75 voltas, mas como o circuito é muito lento, nós não teremos mais de 65 voltas. Watson passando por Jacques Laffite, que está na 6ª posição. Ali parado o carro de Bruno Giacomelli, que bateu contra John Watson. Watson seguiu, Giacomelli ficou. Esse é o carro de Laffite, já sem o bico. Esse é o carro número 25 de Eddie Cheever, segundo colocado. A Ligier de número 25. Eddie Cheever, o segundo colocado. Repetindo em primeiro, John Watson. Em segundo, Eddie Cheever. Em terceiro, Didier Pironi. Em quarto, Keke Rosberg. Em quinto, Derek Daly. Em sexto, Jacques Laffite. 4 minutos para o final da prova, segundo a finalização oficial do box da McLaren. Logo após as voltas finais e os instantes de emoção e definição do Grande Prêmio de Detroit, você vai ver os Trapalhões mais uma vez em todo o Brasil pela Rede Globo. Aí vai John Watson, que fez a melhor volta da prova. John Watson, que no momento da segunda largada estava em 13º lugar. E realiza talvez a grande corrida da sua vida. Uma corrida irretocável, irrepreensível desse irlandês. John Watson, McLaren de número 7. A minutos do final da prova, para uma grande vitória sem dúvida alguma. Aí a Cheever, o segundo colocado. Diminuiu a diferença, de Cheever está 22 segundos atrás. Evidentemente, John Watson dirige essa altura com muito cuidado. E o Cheever também não se vê ameaçado, pois tem 11 segundos de vantagem para Didier Pironi, que é o terceiro colocado com a Ferrari de número 28. Vai para a chicane para completar mais uma volta, Eddie Cheever, segundo colocado na prova. Aí deixando a chicane para trás e passando na reta dos boxes. Voltamos com as imagens de John Watson, o grande líder da prova. Aí vai ele para a parte de velocidade maior do circuito de Detroit. Não chega a ser uma reta, mas pelo menos o carro pode lançar um pouco mais. Ele passa por onde ficou largado o carro de Nigel Mansell, a Lotus de número 12. Aí vem John Watson. O diretor de prova já está no seu local, na reta dos boxes, aguardando a passagem de John Watson dentro de mais 2 voltas. Nós estamos na volta de número 61 com 59 voltas. Você viu 1 hora e 52 minutos de corrida. 2 voltas. A finalização da McLaren muda. De minuto para a volta. Finalizando para John Watson, faltam 2 voltas. Aí vai o Watson, que é o segundo colocado no campeonato com 17 pontos. A confirmar sua vitória, ele assume a liderança com 26 pontos, depois de 7 etapas desse Campeonato Mundial de Fórmula 1 de 1982. Logo após os momentos finais da Fórmula 1, você vai ver os Trapalhões da Rede Globo. Com exclusividade você acompanha a passagem de John Watson na reta dos boxes. Finalizado para ele que restam 2 voltas apenas. É o controle de tempo da equipe da McLaren. Aí cabe a explicação. 65 voltas ou um máximo de 2 horas. As 2 horas irão estourar muito antes das 75 voltas.
Não chegaremos nem a 65 voltas. Primeiro Watson, segundo Cheever, terceiro Pironi, quarto Rosberg, quinto Derek Daly, sexto Jacques Laffite. A passagem de Eddie Cheever. Aí vai ele para a curva, ao final da reta do corte. Entra numa pequena reta e terá uma curva acentuada à sua direita. Na parte alta do circuito, John Watson. A liderança de John Watson perto do final da prova. Mundial 82. Todos em ação, torcendo por um Brasil campeão. Se aproximando de mais uma vitória da sua carreira na Fórmula 1. Logo após os instantes finais do Grande Prêmio Detroit de Fórmula 1, Trapalhões, Eddie Globo. Fechando o túnel, John Watson. Uma curva direita. Depois uma outra esquerda. A chicane à sua frente. Onde bateu o carro de Eliseu Salazar. Controlando a chicane, John Watson. O diretor de prova aguarda com a bandeirada. É questão de tempo. Aí a bandeirada. A vitória de John Watson. John Watson, McLaren de número 7. John Watson é o grande vencedor do Grande Prêmio de Detroit de Fórmula 1 de 1982. John Watson numa corrida fantástica. Conquista mais uma vitória na Fórmula 1. Ele que foi o vencedor do Grande Prêmio da Bélgica. Assume a liderança do Campeonato Mundial 26 pontos. Cruza a linha de chegada, é Cheever na segunda posição. Aí John Watson, o terceiro será Didier Pironi, o quarto Keke Rosberg, o quinto Derek Daly e o sexto Jacques Laffite. Chico Serra chegando na 11ª posição, logo atrás do René ao Grande, parou na segunda volta e Nelson Piquet não conseguiu se classificar. Portanto, John Watson, o grande vencedor do Grande Prêmio de Detroit de Fórmula 1 em 1982. Daqui a pouco, os Trapalhões da Rede Globo. E esta é a classificação oficial do Campeonato Mundial de Pilotos após mais essa etapa. Quando você vê a passagem de Didier Pironi, ele que vai cruzar a linha de chegada na terceira posição. Aí já recolhendo o seu carro, Eddie Cheever. Essa é a classificação oficial do Mundial de Pilotos. Liderança para John Watson com 26 pontos. Em segundo, Pironi com 20. Em terceiro, Alan Prost com 18. Em quarto, Keke Rosberg com 17. Em quinto, Ricardo Patrese com 13. Em sexto, Nick Lauda com 12. Depois, Michele Alboreto e Eddie Cheever com 10. E fechando, Hélio de Angelis e Nigel Mansell com 7 pontos. Esses são os 10 primeiros colocados do Campeonato Mundial de Fórmula 1. A grande vitória de John Watson nesse confuso e complicado Grande Prêmio de Detroit que você acompanhou agora em 100 momentos finais com exclusividade pela Rede Globo. Daqui a pouco você vai assistir mais um Trapalhões na Rede Globo, é claro. Leste Globo na Fórmula 1. Peraí, deixa eu arrumar minha cabeça aqui, né? Bom, é isso aí que era pra fazer, né? Legal.
In fact, they've got all the drivers on there. I see Jochen Mass, I see Keke Rosberg. They've got a full house there. In fact, all the drivers waving to the massive crowd that has come here. And considering it's the very first Grand Prix of Detroit, I'd like to add my congratulations to all of the organisers and to Detroit for bringing this amazing event to this city. Long may it last, many more I hope they'll be. But look, you see a lot of tired drivers sitting down and resting as they're driven around the Renaissance Centre to the start-finishing line area there to come back, of course, to be presented with their trophies.
For John Watson, victory at age 36. For Eddie Cheever, tremendous promise and victory in his native land at age 25.
And as we look at the Renaissance Centre, there is the World Championship situation. John Watson now leads Pironi by 6 points. 2 ahead of Prost, 1 ahead of Rosberg, 4 behind in 5th position is Riccardo Patrese, and in 5th place, Niki Lauda. And we now look forward to the Canadian Grand Prix very shortly, indeed next week.
Great drive. Was it a difficult drive for you?
Well, I'm very happy we had a restart in the race because I think Detroit had some advantage afterwards. But otherwise, the car ran fantastic, the tyres were fantastic, and it was super.
The driver was fantastic, John. Let me see the palm of your shifting hand.
Well, no
Show it to the camera. Hey, not nary a blister, huh?
Not a blister, no.
A great car. Listen, can you go on and win the championship?
Well, we'll try. That's the purpose of racing. So I've got 26 points. And I think, you know, for me, this victory is a little bit unexpected. So we're going to work hard and make sure we do the same in the others.
Okay, that's John Watson. I would hate to be with a person that sits next to me on the plane tonight.
And all our hearts go with John Watson in the hope that he will be world champion. But he's got a chance to make up another 9 points at Canada next Sunday. And we hope that as ever, you're going to join us.